Ladies and gentlemen, I think we can now begin. We are now live. And we'll go ahead and start this first and foremost with our national anthems, and then it will be followed by prayers. So we have the Kenya national anthem. Okay, we will sing in English, and I think all of you have. I'm not very good in music. Next is the Italian national anthem. Thank you very much. Just before you get seated, I just wanted a short prayer from one of us. Maybe Dr. K will pray. Let Dr. K pray so we can stand once more. Just.
Shall we bow our heads and pray? Almighty Father, in the name of Jesus, Lord, we want to thank you this morning. We want to give you praise and honor. Lord, we know that you are a God of standard. We are here to discuss matters of nutrition. We call upon you to guide us with the spirit of excellence, the spirit of deep insight, and the spirit of the Holy Spirit. Lord, we call you to guide us. As you guide us, we shall be careful to return all the glory to you. As we begin this meeting, be with everyone in the flesh and in the spirit, in the name of God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you very much. So let's all be seated. Today, the 14th day of November 2022, we have a symposium that is co-organized by the Embassy of Italy, Nairobi, and the Kenya Nutritionist and Dietitians Institute, Kenya. And therefore, I would like to welcome the members of the diplomatic corps, beginning with the ambassador of Italy to Kenya, His Excellency Roberto Natali, and the chair of the Kenya Nutritionist and Dietitians Institute, Dr. Evelyn Grikacha, who are here in and will be participating in this. The members, we want to take this opportunity to welcome all our friends and guests from Italy, and members and guests from Kenya, and colleagues who are in the diaspora, in this case, those who are following on this program online. Colleagues, we are aware that the title of the symposium today is Conviviality and Innovation, the Ingredients for Sustainable and Healthy Diets. And within the Kenya Nutritionist and Dietitians Institute, we have a section that is dealing with research called ATRIC program, and Dr. K will highlight a bit on that component that is actually running this, which is a subcomponent of the Kenya Nutrition and Dietitians Institute. And therefore, without much ado, since we already past time, I would like to call upon the Chief Executive Officer, Dr. David O'Kay, who is going to do a welcoming remark and also do some guest recognition of those who are present here to allow us have the ball rolling. Thank you and welcome, Dr. K.
Thank you, Professor Goka. Good morning, everyone. Good morning for those who are online and those who are in Zoom. That is also those who are following us live in Zoom. We welcome all of you to KNDI Fraternity, and we are happy to be with you this morning. From here, we are at the headquarters of Kenya Nutritionist and Dietitians Institute. Our program will be running till 1 p.m. So feel most welcome. Now, before I get to the welcome remark details, I want to recognize the presence of the Italian Institute, and also on matters of diplomatic order, we want to recognize the fact that the ambassador, His Excellency Roberto Natali, will be coming here also. And I think that is the time we will have individual introduction from our friends from Italy and also from Kenya. So for now, we may wait for the ambassador to come, and then we can have some recognition for the guests who are present. Thank you very much. You will bear with us for that for now. Good. So are we happy to be at KNDI? First of all, you feel at home. I'm here to welcome you officially to KNDI. And for the guests who are here physically, I just want to say that, sorry. I just want to say that feel most welcome. Now, as Professor has put it, we are here on partnership with the Italiano Institute and the members of the Fourth Estate. Okay. So this is KBC. Are we okay? We can go. Thank you. So as I said, we are here on partnership with the Italiano Institute, and all we are doing is to join them in the week of Italian cuisine, which is running all through this week. And I think our friends will elaborate more on this. We are starting from KNDI. I think the program started yesterday and it is continuing. Of course, it didn't just start yesterday. It started with dinner with the ambassador, and now we are on course. So let me tell you about ATRI. ATRI is, I would request we mute our connections. ATRI is a program that is running as a service arm of Kenya Nutritionists and Dietitians Institute. It runs with the functions of the council. One thing that is critical in our act, which is Act number 18 of 2007, is that the council has functions which are outlined under Section 6 of the Nutritionists and Dietitians Act. And the first 4 items in that section, which are objects of the Act, are dealing with matters of regulation of professionals and regulation of the profession. From number 5 onward, we have service delivery ends. And so ATRI has picked the service end. And one of the key things about the service end, which I would want all the nutrition fraternity, and of course the entire nutrition team to be aware of, is that KNDI Council was given the mandate to research into and provide public education on nutrition and dietetics in Kenya and beyond, and also to maintain competency of members and to provide training for the nutritionists and dietitians, and then design programs and methods for sensitization on suitable dietary and nutrition habits. And I think that is what has brought us here. Now, in the recent amendment of 2019, within the Health Laws Amendments Act, the Nutritionist Council was added one more function, and that is working jointly with other bodies, participate actively in the review of food supplements and fortifiers with nutrient claim. And this function is purely on joint responsibility, and we take lead as the technical group within that particular act. In our act, we have defined what food is, and we have also defined what labels on food means. And so it is purely a scientific component together with a service end. And in our case, food is anything you take and deliver into the stomach for nourishment. That food should not cause any disease or any discomfort, including chewing gum. That is how we have defined our food. And so we want to welcome you officially. ATRI is running the programs of KNDI, and therefore we also want to inform you that our council is online, including the chair, who is part of the program. And we want to welcome all of you to enjoy the peace we have at KNDI and the ambience we have at KNDI. We are one of the regulatory authorities that are out of Nairobi CBD, but we are within the Nairobi metropolitan. So we are still within the city square, and we have good space to breathe. So here we breathe. If you go to town, the noise there cannot make you breathe. But here we breathe. We recently had chicken just next to us here, the kenchik, but it's dead now, so we don't have noise from chicken. So when you are here, feel free, feel at home, and just be sure that everything will be okay, and we shall have a good time, including technical input from various scientists. I want to therefore recognize the scientists on the program. If you look at the program, we have the first presenter there, that is Professor Fabio Santoni, who will be talking to us all through in the first session. Then we also have Dr. Fabrizio Cadillo. Then we have Dr. Okeo and Laura. And then we have Dr. John Kariuki from Slow Foods. And also we have, of course, a panel discussion that will come last. This will include Dr. Konyole, Professor Nguka, and Laura. We also have Dr. Bong, who is likely to join for that discussion. Then again, after that, I think we have moved the program a little bit, but we also have Professor Michelle Fonte Francisco, who will also be presenting during today's symposium. So thank you very much and feel most welcome. We are happy to host you, and you can give a clap for yourself.
Thank you very much, Dr. Keo. Dr. Keo is the Chief Executive Officer, actually, the first Chief Executive Officer of the Kenya Nutritionists and Dietitians Institute. Let me have the pleasure of informing you that His Excellency, the Ambassador of Italy, is actually with us. He's already online. And since he has a big responsibility that none of us can fit in of opening this workshop, I would like to ask our technical team to set up His Excellency Roberto Natali to be able to give an opening remark and also open the symposium.
Good morning to everybody. First of all, I would like to apologize for not to be there with you, but I've been informed that your institute is quite far from the embassy, and I have an engagement immediately after, and so I have calculated that I wouldn't have the time to come back on time. But technology helps us, and so I am with you even if I am at the embassy. I am, of course, very happy to start with you this symposium, whose title is Conviviality and Innovation, the Ingredients for a Sustainable and Healthy Diet. This is a very important aspect of food. And as you know, we wanted to involve your institute in the week of the Italian cuisine. That's because we think that the modern technologies and the modern knowledges allow us to know much more about food. And this is important for health, and this is important for the economy, and this is important not to waste resources. So we also in Italy, we have an institute, the National Institute for Nutrition in Rome, which makes a lot of research. And I think we could find also a way after this week to find some sort of cooperation between the two institutes. And that would be a reciprocal learning of new ideas about food of Italy and food of Kenya. I've seen there are so many specialists today who will give us information and reflections about what this kind of activity, nutrition work. And so I wouldn't take more time to you. I greet you all, and I wish you a day of reflection together and work for a healthy world. Let's say we know that nutrition and food emergency is important in many countries because of drought. So also the way of exploiting at the best what the resources we have are important. In many cases, we know that if we, for instance, have a lot of food, but it's not really calibrated in terms of elements, nutrition will not be the best. And so it's important to study that in order to have the maximum result from what we have, and also to know the characteristics of different kind of production of food, and in order to try to concentrate, to focus on the production of that kind of food for a better alimentation, for better nutrition. So just a few words. I would like to say also thank you to all the participants, and I will be here with you in connection, and I'll be very interesting to listen to what you present to us. So let's start with this symposium and have a nice moment today in the framework of the Italian cuisine and the week of the Italian cuisine. Thank you so much.
We understand how deep the impact of food production and consumption is on the global planet sustainability. I think it is commonly agreed that there are two approaches that must be combined to tackle this aspect of sustainability. First of all, of course, as the ambassador was saying, it's research, technology, innovation, and making the food chain, the whole food chain, not only production, but also consumption, distribution, conservation, an efficient process. But second, we don't want to forget our traditions. Our ancestors already knew many things about sustainability and how to make the food chain sustainable. So maybe going back to our tradition might be also a key with a new perspective to find new ideas and find new innovative ways of producing food locally, mostly. And we don't need to forget also that there are emotions, strong emotions connected to food, to flavors. And so when we are feeding ourselves, of course, we are feeding our body, but we are also feeding our soul. So this goes deep into the food tradition. This is why today we have a quite diverse list of interventions that go from strictly science and innovation, but also into the traditions of food. We will start with an example of from the private sector, which relates to the food chain and how to make, we will analyze the production of avocado and mango and how the importance not only of the production, but of the distribution and the making sure of the quality of the product. Then we will see the Kenyan approach to food efficiency, I presume more and more in the future, through insects, something which is quite far from the Italian tradition, I would say, but maybe will gain most important in the future, and maybe some contamination might happen there, but as I see mostly in the future. Afterwards, we will have a global perspective from our colleagues from the United Nations on the whole food discussion and food the problems around the world. Finally, we will have a collection of Kenya traditional foods born by collaboration between Italian and Kenyan scientists, and we will have Slow Food Kenya and University of Pollenzo. Therefore, before we go into these very interesting topics, let me say that I'm confident that from the sharing of the experience from these different diversified scientists and experts with very different background, new ideas might arise. And I'm also confident that from this first meeting, a more structured collaboration may start with our institutions in Italy. Let me conclude by mentioning that distinctive sign of the Italian food tradition, Italy is the first country that established a faculty of gastronomic science. And it means that Italy is not only exporting products, not only exporting food, but it's exporting food culture. And this is also something we want to share with you. So I thank you again, and I wish you a successful and productive symposium. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm happy, first and foremost, with the presentation. I hope everybody has gotten it clearly. There was some technical issue online and we saw the complaint. Professor, thank you for the presentation. The next presentation is with Dr. Fabrizio Cardillo. I hope I've pronounced it correctly. Yeah, okay. So, yes, yes. So Dr. Cardillo will give us a presentation on the field to fork, value chain, and the importance of certification and traceability of food production, conservation, and delivery. The Italian experience in Kenya with avocado and mango. Welcome.
Good morning to everybody. Sorry for the little delay. But, you know, when you want to test something sweet like mango avocado, you need to wait small, you know. My name is Fabrizio Cardillo. I'm from the private sector. And I'm Italian, of course, you see, short and our company, Goldfinch, is here in Kenya. And first of all, I'm very honored to be part of this symposium in this institute and the Italian embassy, the Italian culture, to have invited us to bring a testimony from an Italian experience here in Kenya. And we came a few years back, and we appreciate the beauty of the nature, the beauty of the opportunity and the environment here in Kenya. And we ask ourselves what we can do to remain here and to add value. Because we know how to work, we know how to process agricultural food and food in particular. We look at the most important value chain, that is the avocado. Worldwide, everybody are talking avocado. You people here know that avocado is defined one of the superfood. And we look at avocado for 3 years. Before entering the business, we study the avocado food chain for 3 years because we want to do something that add value to what is already established here. And we went all over the world and to understand what we can do in Kenya to improve what is already existing. And what we have seen that everything was already implemented in Kenya. There is beautiful weather, beautiful orchard, beautiful farmer, they know what they're doing. But what was missing is to synergize, to harmonize the value chain. That's what was missing. That's where we work. And I'm very glad today to bring to you people our very little and humble experience that we have done in these last 3 years. So 3 years to study the market, 3 years to implement, and we have already done something. And let me come to the our presentation here. And we realized that to synergize the value chain straight from the field, from the farm to the supermarket, to the market abroad. Now, we give a particular importance to the importance of all the certification, the traceability of the food, because to track, especially these days, more we are going forward in more the traceability is very important, especially for a high perishable product like avocado and mango. And also the conservation, which are the system, the technology to apply to make sure to increase the shelf life of this product, and as well keeping the organoleptic, the property, nutritional property at the optimal level. And that's what is what we are trying to do, and what we have done. Hopefully we are trying to do our best. And now our group is one investment group called Goldfinch. We have to do this, what I just say, we are divided in 3 sections because nobody knows everything in this life. So what we have done, we have a company that does agri-value. You can see from the agri-value, adding value to agricultural process. And agri-value is in the field, is with the farmer, is starting from the seedling, selection of the seedling, selection of the irrigation, optimize the irrigation, and all what concern about the field, up to the local logistics, and arriving to the processing plant. We have the processing plant near Two Rivers in Ruaca, and on the northern bypass. There we have built the plant, and we bought one of the good technology from Italian group that specialize in sorting, selection, and we do coating. We do the coating of the product with protein, vitamin to enhance the shelf life of the product. We don't do waxing because we think waxing is killing the product, killing all the nutritious part, because when we export it abroad, it needs to be ripe. And we have also a very good lab. We say that we bought all the equipment to measure the oil content, the dry matter, to see if this product, the bricks, to see if this product are really mature. Because you people know better than me that the nutrition aspect of this fruit or product of food, because avocado is considered food on fruit. There is a discussion there, and it gives that kind of nutrition part if it's mature, and after the maturity, it need to be ripe. So all this process, maturing, conservation, and ripening, when arrive in the global market, to guarantee the proper quality, that is the process that we are doing in our company called Power Life, and where we receive the products from AgriValue, from the farm, and we treat it, we process it. From there start also the cold chain, the cold process to make sure that the product arrive safely abroad. The last company that we have is the Fresco Fresh Pro, is the export company and trading. So field, processing, export and trading, 3 different parts of the chain, and that we control continuously to guarantee the quality of the final product that we will put in the global market. Okay, this is where we are located in, as I say, in Ruaca. Now, for us, has been key from day number 1, traceability. Traceability is the key of what we are trying to implement. And we have arrived, we have developed an app that we track, we did census and mapping of the orchard. Very important because it has never been done. We have collaborated with different counties, from Maqueni to Meru to many different companies, where we have mapped out the orchard and did the census 3 by 3 with QR code, with the satellite. We have know where the trees are, and that's been treated, that will be sprayed. So because it's from that point that we can really know which product we are taking, which product we are harvesting. And this one along the chain, we arrive up to the final, you can see here, to the final product by product. We have a QR code. This one is not an ordinary QR code that go to the website, but it's an ID. This one also from the experience that we have from Italy, one company in Italy that does, it's called Bollettino Farmaceutico, that we track medicine in Italy from the same company with the same experience over 45, 50 years now. The same company has transferred to us the knowledge how to track fruit by fruit. This is not a box. Now we are up to the box, but our final target is fruit by fruit with identity. Because when it goes to the global market, we know where the product has come, from which tree has come the product, and all the process has been treated, when and how. So if there is any problem, we can track it back. The same thing we do with the mango. Now also we have what we do with Fresco, we have, we don't, I always say, we don't look for client worldwide. We create market that is different. We have a base in Europe at the moment in Cesena. In Cesena is the horticultural center in south of Europe. In fact, Cesena has been awarded as the city of horticulture in Europe. And also in Rome, we're opening also in Rome. We have cold rooms there. So all the Kenyan product, track and trace and treated, arrive in our platform in Cesena, and from there we distribute in different parts. And as a Fresco, what we do to protect the quality of the product, we do control atmosphere. Because if you know that produce a lot of ethylene, avocado, they produce a lot of ethylene. So with control atmosphere from the transportation in the container up to the cold room that we have one, as I was saying, we have 13 cold rooms that we can receive up to 200 containers at the same time. And it's quite good quantity. In Europe, the same thing we have in Jeddah, this one outside Italy, South Europe, and also in China, in Shanghai. So we have 3 big hubs where we transfer the product, Kenyan product, in these hubs. This is a very simple schematic way how we operate. You can see that from the mango avocado from the farm, we immediately put in some crate, 20 kilo of crate, and from there with QR code already with we have our app that track immediately from so farm, and we track even the pickers. We have our picker, they are registered, they have an ID, so we know also who has picked the product, the guy, physically person, and from which farm, and from there all the process of traceability start. Because we realize that in many contexts, traceability, sustainability, beautiful word, and everybody they overuse this word, but practically, how has been done? How they do it? So for that reason, we have developed this app that practically we do we collect the first data, we call it data A from the farm. We move it into the receiving bay at the processing plant, where we transfer with reader, QR code reader, all this one in a software, ERP software that we have in this, we manage all the processing. And that one, when we create the batch 20 kilo, we do random test of the product, where we, in our lab that is nearby where we receive the product, we do the dry matter, protein, vitamin, exactly to analyze which dry matter, which protein, vitamin, salt as the product, bricks, oil content, to make sure that the quality, we keep the same quality when arrive there. Because in any of these platforms, that's why it's important for us how we look at have the platform to receive the product, not the client. Because when we receive it abroad there, we do the cross-checking again. As the protein increase, because we lose humidity and so many other factors. So that's is the process that we try to guarantee in the line. Also, we have sorry. Okay, this is the part of the process that we do. We do what we call it's called hot water treatment to kill all the eventually bacteria eggs, especially for the mango. I think all of you people know that mango was banned to be exported in Europe for more than 8 years. It was self-banning. KEFIS self-banned Kenya because of the fruit fly. And it's almost 3 years that we are working hand to hand with European community, with the Makueni government and Machakos here. We have trained about 8,000 farmers already, but our plan is 12,000 farmers. We train them and certified. We create the fruit fly free zone, especially in Makueni, in Wote, in Kibwezi. And we are last year, we as a company, we exported first batch. I think you read in the newspaper, television, talk a lot. That we exported the first batch into Europe. And that one allowed us, with KEFIS, with the professor, to be certified again that this year, by the grace of God, we are going to export the first mango into Europe market. We hope before Christmas there will be another commissioning, another event where we commission the plant, the hot water treatment for mango. That is a result of our little know-how, Italian know-how, together with the product that is here, together with KEFIS, together with ISIPE. We are partner with ISIPE, ISIPE, with ISIPE, and 3 years of work, and this year is also coming to reality. So we will promote apple mango, it's very sweet mango, also in Europe, not only in Dubai and in other places. And this is the process that we do to make sure that we can track, when arrive abroad there, if there is any problem, we know where the problem is coming from, because problem is part of our life. But our intelligence is to face the problem and solve the problem. But if we don't have the data and we cannot track the problem, we cannot look at the problem face to face, we can never resolve it. That's what we are trying to do. Sorry, this thing. Okay, this is also the process that we do, you see, from the farmer to the... One thing very important, we involve with the cooperatives. Like all the county, many counties, we have all the cooperatives that we aggregate we have aggregation center in the field to aggregate the work of the small, medium farmer. Also, okay, we have a special arrangement with big farm, but what also is very important is the small and medium farmer to aggregate their own product. So there is no need for them to spend a lot of money in transport, this and that to come. And many times the product is going to be rejected and the problem start. And so what we do, we aggregate the product there in the field. And that one give an edge to the small and medium farmer to have an income and to make sure that that income is entry without too many problems. Okay, like this one, you see, in Muranga, this I just brought a sample from Muranga for the avocado, and we have the IT platform center there. We check the first quality, and it goes straight from the farm into the market. For us, have the control from the farm, from the seedling to the market is extremely important, because we have noticed that in any value chain, but especially in this value chain, avocado and mango, especially avocado, that is high profitable, at any step there is a challenge, because everybody tries to protect their own interest. Normal, it's a business, but protecting their own interest, they match the product many avocado in abroad from Kenya inside is black, it's not good, it's spoiled. There is a lot of problem. I was part of the association of I'm part of the society, avocado society on Kenya, and there was a lot of I think you read it on the newspaper with Dubai supply. I don't know how many 500, 700 million people don't pay because of this kind of problem. So it's also giving a good product, quality-wise, nutrition-wise, reflect immediately in make a business profitable, sustainable, because people, they pay you. But if the product arrives spoiled or has a problem, because some in the value chain has not been synergized, there is also problem and business-wise. This okay, the same thing, the QR coding. Another thing very important is the ask price and bid price. For our experience that we have done in these two value chain, sometimes there is a big discrepancy between the asking price in the field or in the market to the bid price in the consumer market. Why? Because what we are trying also to implement is to do cost analysis, the cost analysis from the field, because doing a correct cost analysis in the field, you have the cost of the food that is extremely important. Because if not, it's just based on assumption. Sometimes, especially avocado and mango, sometimes they have problem to be positioned in the global market because of that cost analysis has not been done well. But we are so happy that we have a team of people, Kenyans, all Kenyans, that we are really have done that one quite effective. Sorry, I put the 20 minutes already gone, so let me do fast. And okay, this is the different phase of the orchard management, the IPM, the pest management, the pest management, the data. Very important to collect data every day. We collect data from farmer. Data is very important because data is the solution, analyzing the solution for the future. If you have data, you can analyze solution for the future, the aggregation of and to the market. Okay, this is part of the hot water treatment that we have, part of it. There is another part beside. And okay, this is also going back to the hot water treatment, all the data analysis, traceability, align, all of what we have just said. I put some picture. We can go through some picture to see physically. It's not only ordinary mouth talking, but physically we are in the field. So this is some of the nursery. Okay, this one also another thing very nice we did with Muranga, with the former governor. We did avoboda. Instead of called boda, avoboda. We created at the back of the bike something that can carry up to 120 kg of avocado with the QR code and everything. So we empower, I don't remember how many boda guy, but they call avoboda. So they are certified, they are registered, they know how to transport the product, because avocado, if it do a lot of like this touching, at the end of the day, when it's at the ripening point, it's black. You treat in the dustbin. All the effort has been. Also, we train them, the avoboda, how to transport avocado. And okay, this is also part of the process that in the field. This also training. This was a very nice train here in Machakos, in Muranga, in Meru. Okay, very important. We have the asset to manage the cold chain, because it's extremely important, cold chain, because if the temperature fluctuate from 20 degrees to +5 to 30 again, the normal nutritionally is spoil everything. And this part of the project that we're done with EU and in Makweni, in water. This is what I was saying here, is the 3 by 3. We have this tag, you see? This tag here is the QR code and the sensors. This connected to the satellite. We know where the tree is, and we are smiling because many farmers say, "I have 300 trees." Ah, okay, good, well done. When we count the tree, is 100 trees. So where are the other 200? Many of them, they don't know even how many trees really they have and where they are and how many the age. But with this QR code ID, we give an ID to each tree. We can write the age, what has been treated, so many things about the tree by tree. And we can do, as I say, mapping and sensors. Okay, this is very important also. What we do, when we transport the goods, we have we collect data, and we collect data temperature, we collect data of the gas, everything. This log tag, and from the local to the international logistic. Okay, this is the same. This is our app. When we read with our app. Okay, this was the last year with TCP here. This is when the CP lab, television, all these people. The first mango that arrived in Italy. This is Rome airport. We send it by flight. This is Rome airport. This is when we left Kenya, when arrived in Fiumicino airport. And the phytosanitary system in Italy was so wow. In fact, they finish all, they eat it all because they really like the product. You know, apple mango is very nice. One is well mature and well ripe is quite nice. This is the experience that we did last year to open the market. This some of our loading area, some of export process. See, as we are exporting and loading containers. This is also by flight, the avocado by flight. This is part of our plant. Our plant, with our big surprise, we never expect that. But last year we have been awarded the best plant in East Africa. Yeah. And but we never did that for. In fact, when they call our name, it's yours. There are so many other people, and maybe they make a mistake. But really, we did all our factory is a cold room. Number one, control at temperature. All the floor walls is antibacterial. We took some very nice product to, so you can see all the floor, everything is antibacterial floor. And we have done one or two things that make sure that is an international standard. See, even the washing area, one of my, we know each other, all of us in the operator in the avocado. One of my very good friend, an Indian guy, many years here, 3 generations, 4, they also do avocado. When he came to see our factory, he said, Fabrizio, but you are spending too much money to do this one. I said, why you do this one like this? I said, I don't know, me, I like to do it well in this way. I don't know. But now it's paying us back because with China, with other market, when they come to visit our factory, they say, wow, it give to Kenya and very good. So I say, wow, this one look like is anywhere in the world at the international standard. And we are very happy for that, really. So this is a quality control area. All these are two. After our plant can do 12 fruit per second. 1, 2, 3, 4, already 100 fruit. It's quite fast and monitor all the grammage, do the scanning, everything. But at the end of the line, we check always the quality. We have a control department. Okay, this is when we have been awarded last year. This we do some social also work. We have a school. We have done 1 or 2 things that we are very happy about that. And okay, this is the characteristic of the avocado. We work, as you people know, Fuerte and the As avocado, the different specification of As and Fuerte avocado. This is the hot water for the mango. This is the composition of our container. This is the final product when we export. And this is our partner. We are all certified, SMETA, Global Gap, GRASP, all the certification needed. We got it, and we work with all the avocado association, ICIP, USA, the trademark, and the KEFIS. Thank you very much. This is our small experience that we have done in Kenya, and we hope and we pray that we can improve every day. Because to improve, there is no limit. Thank you. Thank you.
What a nice way to finish it. That there is no limit. Eh? You remember our Kipchoge? No human limit. Eh? And as he was presenting, I kept on doing some calculations. So 20 fruits per second. It amounts to about 864,000 fruits in a day. That's a massive production. It's okay. So thank you very much, Dr. Kadilo, for that very inspiring presentation, especially on field to fork, with very important inputs on quality assurance, and especially with the traceability that comes all the way from individual tree to individual fruit that is marked. Something that was striking is up to now, you are still dealing with the QR code for the box, or is it already at the fruit level?
No, it's already at the fruit level.
Wow.
In fact,
So-
we got such promotion for promote tourism. Eh?
Yeah.
You know, splash wind, like we can be like splash wind, and when it's abroad there, if you should maybe you win a safari in Kenya.
Oh, beautiful.
That's what it's so. We must come to bear
Okay.
agriculture and tourism.
Beautiful.
That's what we are trying to do.
Beautiful, beautiful. So you can see that field to fork integration into even tourism, and more importantly, being able to trace even up to a tree from where the particular fruit came from. The issue of ethylene problem with avocado is a serious problem, but we are happy that you are also intervening with the transport. The ripening of avocado, there is a biosynthesis, subsequent biosynthesis of ethylene also comes with it. And that process can be even fastened by the mode of transport. So what brings to me about that is the avoboda, which is another very innovative approach that has come in. So we are getting you very well, and I think we are home with this aspect of field to fork. Can we clap once more for Dr. Thank you very much. Very important information. We are moving, we have two important presentations, and the next one is insects. After avocado and mangoes, the next food is insects. Dr. David Okeyo and Laura Gake, they're here. My baby girl, come on. So this, Dr. Okeyo and Laura are going to present on edible insect-based diet, sustainable, low-cost, nutritious diet. Thank you. Thank you. Laura, introduce yourself.
I hope everybody can see me. Okay, I'm Laura Ombasa, a registered clinical nutritionist. I have an interest in insects, and we recently co-authored a book chapter with Dr. Okeyo, my CEO, and he'll do the presentation.
Thank you. Laura is saying she cannot be seen, but she's very tall. So thank you very much. I've just listened to avocado value chain, and I think I'm impressed. What is going on is really a real food translation. So I think for those who are interested in mango, avocado, and any other fruit, this is the time that we need to start talking. This is the time that we need to start collaborating on matters of avocado food value chain and mango food value chain. The most interesting thing is that in Kenya, we have land and we have not produced enough. Now they are talking about growing fruits and vegetables in the space. People who don't have land are now using the air to grow. So we are really with resources that we need to really multiply and use for effective food production in the value chain. I want to talk about an interesting topic. This is insects, and I'll be getting to the Zoom to share my screen. Am I allowed? Okay, you are not allowed, that is. The host is very cruel because he has disallowed anyone else to speak. I can share the screen now. Okay. So I think we are here. Are we together? Is it on the screen? Are we okay? Yes. Thank you very much. This is edible insect-based diet as a sustainable, low-cost, nutritious diet. And of course, we are moving away from the fruits to now livestock. And one of the things that we need to understand is that insects is one of the livestock we have. So in the classification of food, insect is livestock. So that could be interesting because people thought insect is insect, but it is livestock and very good livestock. So in this presentation outline, we have introduction, which will just give us an outline of why insects. And of course, we have the history of entomophagy, the eating of insects, and then why insects, the type of insects we have, and nutrition value and consumer acceptability, challenges, and of course, future prospect and summary. One of the things is that when people talk about insects and insects as food, we try to run away from it. But I think in the history of humanity, we'll discover that insect was actually the first food ever on earth. And sometimes also when you hear about insects, you only see mosquito, which is the most dangerous insect, but we forget about the 43,000 species of insects that are edible and can be consumed in the entire world, not only in Africa. As long as you breathe, you can take insects. So what is insect? When you talk of the term insects, it originates from a Latin word, which is called insectum, with a divided body. That is the meaning. Any livestock with a divided body is insects. And it's also a class of animals within the arthropod group with a chitinous exoskeleton. And the body is 3 parts, the wings, and 3 pairs of legs. So we have the insect like what you have seen on the left-hand side. Most diverse groups of animal on Earth, we have different species and found nearly in all environments. So we cannot say there is any land without insects. And they undergo what we call metamorphosis to adapt to any kind of seasonal variation. And we have what we call the short production time period for insects to mature and often have large populations. If you go back to the history of Kenya, just 2 years ago or a year ago, we had locusts everywhere. And the Minister for Agriculture was struggling on how they can use drone to kill insects. You don't use bullets to kill insects. You can trap them for food and you convert them to useful material. So when you spend money to start chasing insects with drone and you chase them with bullets and you say very soon it is going to kill the entire nation when it comes to vegetation, what you need to quickly think about, how can we harvest the insects in a better way to make them a productive food for Kenyans and any other part of the world. So we have food that we are chasing and we can use them to build our immunity when it comes to matters of nutrition. So the history of entomophagy, that is the practice of eating insects, that is worldwide. We will want to make reference to the Bible. Of course, I know there's Quran, but let's look at what the Bible says. All flying insects that walk on all fours are to be regarded as unclean by you. So those with four are not clean. There are, however, some flying insects that walk on all fours that you may eat. So some you eat, some you don't eat. Those that have jointed legs for hopping on the ground. Of these, you may eat any kind of locust, or katydid, or cricket, or grasshopper. But all other flying insects that have four legs, you are to regard them as unclean. So there are certain selections of insects that is found in the book of Leviticus 11:20-23. It is the Bible. So part of most traditional diets in the countries of Africa, Asia, America, and Australia actually was made up of a delicacy on insect dish. And I'm telling you, if you walk to the coastal region and you walk to the coastal regions worldwide, including Lagos, you will see insects all over. Why insects? Increasing population growth will result into additional demand for food globally, because human beings are giving birth at a very high rate. And we cannot say that there's only one region that gives birth. If you are a population of 10,000 women and each one gives birth in 1 week, how many children, how many human beings have we brought on board? So many. Okay? And I want to say that because of this growing population, there's greater demand for food, and particularly protein. And we know that protein sources are somehow very expensive in the current world. Conventional animal protein sources, including beef, which we know, the pork, the chicken, meat, may be insufficient to meet these needs. And subsequently, opening a door to alternative sources would be important. We know that even Kenya, even the northeastern part, we have heard of the drought, for example. And we know that the animals are dying. And so if they're dying, then getting that as a source of protein would be very difficult in the near future if we don't adapt to the climatic conditions. Edible insects show great potential as environmentally friendly choice of future food systems. And I know UNEP has a value chain of food systems presentation. I would want you to catch that very well, that when we're talking about the food systems, then we cannot leave out insects. And that is high quality insects. We are not talking about just insects, high quality insects. I was telling some people that if you grow housefly well in improved conditions with sanity, you can eat housefly. And if you grow cockroach well, you can also eat cockroach. Now, somebody will say, really? Do you think cockroach in my house we can eat? Yes, if it is properly kept and grown as clean, you can eat cockroach. In Maseno University, we had termites cookies. which are doing very well in Bondo University now. So it is possible. There are several beneficial aspects of utilizing insects as sustainable food source, including their high nutritional content. So why eat insects? We look at 3 pillars of the positives for insect consumption. That is environment, domain, livelihood, and health. Now, when it comes to the environment, we know that the greenhouse effect is a concern globally within the context of climatic conditions. And in that greenhouse effect, the main risk factor or risk creature is actually the higher level, heavy livestock. And so we know that we have the issues of the ozone, which is a problem. And who is the cause? It is the emissions that we have, which are put in the air that really brings these issues as a risk. But we know that in the environment, insects would emit very little to the space. It requires less land and land-based activities to rear. You don't need a bigger space for insects. Highly efficient at converting feeds into protein. For example, the use of organic waste to feed. So we have a lot of advantage for insects in the environment. When it comes to livelihood, we know that insects harvesting and rearing offers an investment opportunity. Those who are engaged in insect production for commercialization are making huge sums of money, which can be useful for households. And insects can be processed for food. And of course, it is very easy to process insects. If you cross to Uganda and you go to the streets of Uganda, you can't miss a grasshopper. Sometimes they even go to the airport and find their way into the plane with their insects as a delicacy in Uganda. Some species can be consumed whole. You don't necessarily need to process them, like grasshopper or termites. Okay, you go to Maseno area, you've been there. Yes, you will see everybody's on the ground picking raw insects and they're eating, and it's a delicacy, and everyone will be on their knees. They're getting cheap source of protein without money. Insects can also be processed into paste or ground into meal, and their proteins can be extracted. And so when you want to do a sauce, you can do with insects. When you want to do a powder, which can then be mixed with the wheat, and those who have problems with wheat, you can get a good version of maize flour, and you get your protein on the table with a powdered product. So you can process it to get your protein without meat, without money for meat. And then when it comes to health, then nutritious alternatives or traditional protein sources is found in the insects. They are rich in protein, lipids, fiber, vitamins, and minerals. And the problem of hidden hunger is a great matter in the countries, and of course, developing countries. When you talk of hidden hunger, this is micronutrient deficiency, which many of us think that is not hunger. So we concentrate on ugali. So when you see a member of parliament walking around, the best they can give is maize flour and sugar, and on the streets, thinking that is the only food. But they're forgetting that that is only focusing on protein, on energy malnutrition. But the protein, the micronutrient deficiency, which is a hidden hunger, is left out, which can be solved by insects. Insects already form traditional part of many regional and national diets. In fact, insect eating is not new. It started many, many years ago. And people ran away from insects and they came to the foods that are now causing obesity. And of course, we are struggling with NCDs because of the new lifestyle. If we went to traditional way of eating, and we combine with our traditional way of keeping our food, particularly the energy-based foods like maize, we would then have a better solution. Now, on these slides, it is important to do a comparison to see the advantage of insects when it comes to what we call the global warming, the land, the water. And of course, if you look at the number 40 there, going up to number 80 by serial, this is on the up here. You'll see that that is, let's say a cow, that is the livestock that are huge livestock. If you see how much they are converting, how much land you require is huge. When you talk of global warming, it's huge. It is here. That is followed immediately by pigs. You see it gets smaller, and then poultry. And then down there we have the insects. And so you see you don't need land. It emits very little, so it disturbs the climate. Not at all. And of course, when it comes to the feed conversion, you see it's also equally very small, which means that it has advantage for all other sources of protein. So if you have insects, many insects, you can get your protein with a little space. If we have a space like what we have here, we can grow multiple insects and use them as food. And we have now new technologies for multiplying insects that at a later stage we'll be talking about to see that every household can produce insects. The only question is how would it be processed to make it more pleasant and delicious? Because when it comes to gastronomy, it is cultural eating, but of course the key thing in gastronomy is the acceptability. So we see that is showing us, of course, the species of insects we have globally. And if you look at Kenya, for example, and Africa, you cannot have less than 50 to 100 species. So we have many insects and they multiply very fast. I think a housefly grows very fast. Within 7 days, it's mature. You will wait for a cow to take 3 years to grow to the level that you can eat it. So if you concentrate on insects, then we can have multiplication. There are many, many insects. We don't want to go into this, but we have so many edible insects. And I would want to, the cricket, for example, is in Kenya. They make a lot of noise in the bushes when you pass. I was once having a friend from Nigeria, and when they came, they saw snail, and they were asking me, this is snail? For them, that is delicacy. And I was telling them, we don't eat this here. But they were saying, this is a delicacy, the snail. So if a snail is a delicacy in Nigeria, you go to Malawi, you see the caterpillars on the trees is a delicacy. You come to Western Kenya, grasshopper is a delicacy. And when you go, you see anthill, right inside the anthill is a queen, which is a delicacy. If you get it and roast it, everybody scrambles for it. Then why can't we multiply it and process it to a better level that everybody can accept it? We have so many species, and these are just selected in the world. So there's no country without insects, and there is no society, particularly Kenya, a region without insect. And these are edible insects. Now, I want to get to the nutritional value. Of course, we talk about high nutritional value from insects. And it depends on the species of the insects you're dealing with from literature. But we can say in summary that insects has real nutritional value when it comes to micronutrients and, of course, proteins and lipids. And the key thing we need is, which is a big problem, is protein malnutrition, is micronutrient deficiency, the hidden hunger. Energy malnutrition is not a problem, because we have known in Kenya that if you once you have 10 bags of maize, you are secure in terms of energy, as long as you can access it. but we don't think about protein. Now you go to Lake Victoria today, you want to get small fish, which is labeled as omena. It's very expensive. You can't afford it now, but we can afford to grow insects and process it to the better. So that is protein. And we have lipids. Lipids are critical in the human diet. Many people think fat is bad. The problem is not fat. Obesity is not caused by fat. Obesity actually has its roots from carbohydrates. So when we convert carbohydrates to eating fat, we can actually solve the problem of obesity. Most of the time, people think it's the fat. That is not true. It is the calorie we take, particularly from the carbohydrates, that convert themselves into brown and white adipose. And of course, you gain weight because of carbohydrates, the cookies, not the fat. So when we need fat, insect is alternative. When you require fiber, you get them from insect. That is also supported by literature. When you're looking for minerals, copper, of course, zinc, iron, calcium, all that are needed for the body as trace elements, you get them from insects. When you're looking for vitamins, you will see vitamin A, C, and of course, niacin, the B vitamins, you get them from insects. So the problem now is the consumer acceptability. How many of us would want to eat insects? That is the question. If you put it on the table whole, everyone will run away from you. The children will run away because they found their parents eating pizza. So you show them insect, they run away because they only want to see pizza. You put pizza on the table and you put insect, they will choose pizza. Even adults who should be ashamed with pizza, they sit around the table with the mega, sometimes large adults like you, sir. And you are eating like me, but they cannot eat insects. So it's not acceptable food. And people will be talking about, what about the hygiene? Is it okay? Yes, hygiene is you. It is the human being to make things hygienic. It is not the insect to make themselves hygienic. So you create an environment for them, then they are grown in clean environment, you convert them to food. But the question is, how would it be acceptable? So the new technology, therefore, should be like, how do we prepare insects to make it more pleasant in the gastronomy framework? How do you make it more appealing as a diet to those who are consumers? It is not easy to accept insects unless a time comes when we improve the insect product. So then the processing becomes very key in the commercialization of insects. The challenges that are there, of course, I know food safety is one of them. And many people say, how are you sure that insect will be safe? Of course, if it is freely grown or free growing insects in the community, you are not sure with safety. But if it is properly grown under a controlled environment, then you can assure safety in the value chain of production. And the technology that is currently being used to multiply insects is actually clean technology in the value chain. So we can do that. So what is the summary? It was just, we have a whole paper for this, but we have just picked what we need to communicate to this audience. Edible insects are alternative food sources. Say I hear. Say I hear. Edible insects. And edible insects have nutrition composition comparable to most animal proteins. So if they have comparison with most animal proteins, then they are better when it comes to space, for example. So they are now higher level protein compared to a cow, for example. Edible insects develop more quickly than conventional animal proteins. It will take you 3 months to grow fish. but it will take you 7 days to grow housefly. Which is better? Entomophagy, that is the eating of insects, could protect agricultural resources and lessen the environment impact when it comes to matters of pesticides and all those things we use in agriculture. With insects, we will put them aside. Of course, I know those who are in the business of pesticides, they will not be happy. But the fact remains that we can lessen the weight we put on the environment. And then, of course, consumer acceptance necessary to increase the demand for edible insects. But we still need research on safety and issues to do with allergy when it comes to consumption.
Beautiful. We are increasing our dietary diversity score and dietary variety score. It is an additional enlargement into our food group pyramid, so that within the meat and meat alternatives, you can now add insects as a component that is coming in there. Yes, as you talk about avocado and mango, which is part of the fruit, within the meat and meat alternatives, we have increased a dietary variety on that level of food group, isn't it? Insects are very rich in essential fatty acids, and he has mentioned oleic, linoleic, linoleic, and palmitic acids. All of you are aware that in the last part of gestation, that is the last trimester and the first 3 months of life, there is active brain formation, particularly the formation of myelin shell. So if you are talking about academic dwarfs, then they begin from that stage of life. If the brain is not properly myelinated, just like engineers want big wires for transmission of electricity, brain work is about transmission of impulses. The bigger the wires, the better. The bigger the wires, the bigger the megabytes storage and transmission. So you can see it's beneficial. May I eat insects? There are 4 major ones in the western side. Termites being one of them. And we were sharing with our Italian team on particularly the queen ant. We search for them in the anthill and roast them and eat. Very nice. And of course, the lake flies. And today we have the cricket biscuits from Joost. That is Jaramogi Oginga University of Science and Technology. So, and more. To me, let's include insects, and we are also saying in Masinde Muliro, we are bringing in fungi, mushroom, particularly the button mushroom and other mushrooms. And we are now bringing in algae. We are extending the foods. The algae, spirulina is key. So you add insects, add algae, and add fungi, plus the existing food groups, then why must we suffer because of the absence of maize? If you have a dietary diversity score of 4 and above, scientists know you can meet your total nutritional requirements. The 59 nutrients are available there, isn't it? So let's proceed. Now we have the last but not least important presentation. Dr. Kariuki, who is an alumnus of the University of Gastronomic Science of Polenzo, and is also the director of Slow Foods Kenya. And I was trying to understand where the slow foods come from. Dr. Ari told me that it is the opposite of fast food. Fast food is a real problem in Kenya. Please go slow. So from today onwards, go slow. Dr. Ari, welcome.
So good morning, everyone. Good morning again. Yeah, so my name is John Kariuki. I'm working with Slow Food Kenya, and I'm honored to be in this symposium. And I think that most of the presentations that are before me have touched on the basic pillars that guide our association. We have talked about food. Food is culture. Food brings conviviality, but food is a strong political tool that can change our world. So I was privileged to live in Italy for 4 years. And when I was in Italy, I traveled a lot from north to south. And I can attest that Italian food is so diverse. And Italians pay a lot of attention to the food they eat, the smell, the taste, the texture, and also the origin, unlike the Kenyans. I think nowadays when you go to supermarket as a Kenyan, the first thing that you look is not the quality of the food that you're buying. You look at the prices. And with increasing food prices, I think that this will continue to be the trend. But when you look at Kenya as a country, we are a very diverse country because we have more than 43 different tribes with the different gastronomic traditions, but we are shying away from our food. Okay. Yeah, but we are shying away from our traditional food. And I think this is this is something that's happening among our youth. So we really need to raise awareness on our traditional food. And on the other side, I think that we also need to improve our food. And this is where the innovation hits the road. We need to work with our cooks. We need to work with our chefs to modernize our cuisine, to make our food attractive to the global community. But not only to the global community, we also need to make our food attractive to our young generation. And the thing I always say is that we have talked a lot about our traditional food, but how many people are aware about what our forefathers used to eat? I think this knowledge is disappearing. And this is why we need to work with chefs. A celebrity chef should not only focus on continental and exotic foods. They also need to focus on our Kenyan and African cuisine and how they can bring innovation and ensure that we can also bring tourists from all over the world to come and taste our food. So we have a lot of tourists that are traveling to Italy to taste their food. But how many tourists are coming to Kenya to taste our food, apart from visiting our game parks? So we have very few tourists that are interested in our cuisine, apart from our national parks. So we need to work with our chefs. And when we talk about chefs, yeah, so I'm saying that we need to work with our cooks, and that we don't like using the word chefs, because chefs it mainly focuses on these celebrity chefs or maybe Michelin star chefs. That's why we talk about cooks, because we want to ensure that this quality food and this innovation trickles down to our local communities. So what is slow food? I know that this is the elephant in the room, and slow food, and actually, I was telling my friend that slow food was started as a campaign against fast food. And it was started in Italy in the year 1989. And this was after the first fast food restaurant was opened in Rome. Piazza Spagna, is it Piazza Spagna? So that's where the first McDonald's restaurant was opened. And our founder, together with a number of friends, sat down and decided to start a movement to counter the rise of fast food in Italy. So the movement has continued to grow. We are now present in over 160 countries, and our activities revolve around the defense of food biodiversity, educating the general public, and also advocating for a better food system. So what kind of challenges are we facing, or what kind of challenges are we trying to address? Of course, I talked about the issue of loss of biodiversity. According to FAO, in the last 1 century, we have lost over 75% of edible plant varieties. And you realize that we are only relying 60% of our food comes from just a few grains. That is maize, wheat, and rice. So we are mainly focusing on these global commodities to feed our people. But this is a trend that needs to change. We need to work with our communities. We need to diversify what they are growing. what they are eating, and also what they are marketing. And then on the other side, we're also looking at consumer education. We need to raise awareness among our people so that they are aware of the consequences of their food choices. Where is their food coming from? Who produces their food? And what are the consequences of their food choices? So these are some of the guiding pillars that guide our actions on the ground. So in Kenya, we have been working from 2004. Actually, that's when Slow Food started in Kenya. We are initially hosted by local organizations, but we are now registered as an legal entity. We are working in 15 counties. And of course, we have a number of projects that go into the direction of ensuring that we are diversifying what we are growing. And then on the other side, our farmers and consumers are aware about the consequences of our agricultural practices, our food choices to the environment. And today we are talking about this huge elephant, which is climate change. How can our action contribute towards mitigating and adapting to climate change? So one of the projects we have is a project we call the Arc of Taste. And with the Arc of Taste, what we are trying to do is to document our traditional products that are disappearing. So we are looking at plant varieties. We are also looking at animal breeds and also processed products. Because as I said, not everyone knows about what their forefathers used to eat. And of course, this knowledge is disappearing, and we need to do something to save these products. So this is a publication by Slow Food Kenya and the University of Gastronomic Sciences about some of the products. There are 75 products here from different communities, traditional products from different communities that are disappearing. So we need to ensure that this knowledge is there, and our children can learn about these products. And then we have realized that documentation is not enough. We need to act. We need to work with communities to understand why these products are disappearing and what can be done to save these products. Just to give a few examples, we have our own traditional maize, like Gedigo. I don't know how many are from the Kikuyu community. We have Gedigo maize. Gedigo maize used to do very well. You didn't need like external inputs to grow Gedigo maize. But nowadays we are being pushed towards GMOs. But for us, we don't believe that GMOs or GMO can be a solution to the challenges we are facing. GMOs cannot be a solution to the drought situation in the northern part of the country, because single genes, injecting single genes in our seeds cannot solve our challenges. So we need to promote our traditional varieties that are well adapted to different local conditions, because I think that this is the only solution to the challenges that we are facing. And then on the other side, we are looking at animal breeds. We have the red Maasai sheep. The red Maasai sheep is associated with the Maasai community. This is a breed that used to do very well in the Maas Island. But nowadays, when you go to Maas Island, it's very difficult to find a pure red Maasai sheep because of the crosses between exotic breeds and the red Maasai sheep. But with the drought situation, we are being reminded that we need to go back to our roots. We need to go back to our traditional plant varieties. We need to go back to our animal breeds that are well adapted to different climatic conditions. And then on the other side, we are also looking at the issues of markets. How can we promote agroecological products? How can we promote this traditional value chain? How can we ensure that our consumers are aware about these products? So we also run other markets that are farmers markets to ensure that at least these products can also access market. And then on the other side, I talked about the important role that cooks and chefs play in the food industry. So working with cooks, different outlets, starting from food kiosks in villages to five-star restaurants, ensuring that quality food is available to everyone, ensuring that we bring innovation in our kitchen, like promoting our traditional variety of maize, our indigenous vegetables. You talked about edible insects, and you can use edible insects as a topping for pizza. I think this should also happen when it comes to the Kenyan cuisine. How can we modernize? How can we make or promote sorghum cake millet ugali instead of always relying on maize. So these are some of the approaches. And of course, working with the farmers to grow food in a way that doesn't harm the environment, reduce the use of chemicals, and then on the other side, ensuring that they are prioritizing our traditional crops. So this is more or less what we are doing as Slow Food. And we believe that Slow Food is not an organization per se. Slow Food should be a way of life. So we need to always remember where our food comes from, who produces our food, and we also have to ensure that our farmers are getting a fair compensation for the work that they are doing. Because I know that in Africa, our farmers have remained poor kings because they produce 80% of the food we eat, but they have always remained poor. So to conclude, I think climate change is here with us. And as Slow Food, we have an urgent call for action because we believe that starting from our own individual actions, we can change the global food system for better. So thank you so much. So you can have a look at this.
Thank you very much, Dr. He has emphasized particularly on indigenous food systems. And for those of us who are going fast, you have been advised to go slow and be able to take steps in using our original foods. When some of us were growing up in the early 80s, actually we only used to eat maize flour, ugali, only during December, particularly on 25th. Reasons I can't explain up to date. In the entire days, we used to get our flour from what he has called sorghum. And it was a mixture of sorghum and dried cassava. When you mix the two and you prepare ugali out of it, my friend, it's yummy and sticky and very nice. And that is what we used to eat. I don't know why the maize flour would only come on 25th in December. But this other one was daily. And it used to be very cheap because we had the cassava with us and we had the potatoes with us as well. Sometimes we used to mix even potatoes with cassava together with the sorghum, particularly the traditional sorghum, not the finger millet, the sorghum that we have. And partly, as he has said, following the climate change, the cassava is actually becoming a very serious food source for us. Why must we struggle and grieve simply because there is no maize? Yet cassava is grown even in areas that are dry. If you go down western, particularly towards Busia, we have periods when cassava would actually appear as if they are dry. And they are growing but falling their roots. And when the rains come, then all of a sudden, their leaves are coming up. You don't need to even worry about them. If it were not for the cassava mosaic disease, which has given us problems down there, I think cassava is something that can serve you the entire year with no problem. And you can get unga from there. Unga is the flour. And full and nutritious. The issue of the killing that it has, the cyanide, is easily drawn, especially when you process it. You can reduce cyanide to bare minimum, in fact, 0 for every cassava. So you can see that in Kenya, we are just suffering from a mentality. And that is why I love his statement, call to action for climate change. In the food security system, this then becomes a route. Thank you very much, Dr. for this presentation. I was just emphasizing on that. And our next point, and somebody has written something to me, I'll say that, Doc, do you have insect menu? Yeah. So call to action. We hope we'll find the insect along the way, and some of us would taste it. And therefore, we are going to break for tea. So our next presenter is going to be Professor Michelle Fontefrancesco. Or Fontefrance. Okay. So Michelle is going to give us, Michelle is from the University of Gastronomic Science of Polenzo. And she'll present online. So I hope she's being set up. And the title of our presentation is Going Back for Moving Forward. Going back for moving forward, the new opportunities of Kenyan food heritage products. So it's been a very good presentation today. It's just going back. In the 7th day, we call it back to Eden. How many 7th days are here? Yeah. So there is back to Eden, means going back to our roots. Those that we used to feed on are actually providing us with this nutrition, sustainable nutrient solutions. So we'll be waiting for her to be set up. I hope she's online. She's already online? Okay. He is online. Sorry, my brother.
So much. Thank you. Okay, so I'm sharing my screen and first of all, let me thank all the organizers for having me here today with you. It's an honor for me, and above all, it's a great pleasure. Unfortunately, I cannot be in person, so let's try to share these experiences and point of view with you in this way. I attended the first part of the symposium, and I have to thank all the previous speakers because they already introduced some of the topic that I want to touch in my presentation. First of all, I think that it may be nice if I introduce a bit myself. I'm assistant professor of cultural anthropology at the University of Gastronomic Science, where I also convene the program, the bachelor program in gastronomic science and culture. And at the core of my research, there is always the issues concerning rural and local development. And in these past years, the most important element for this development, indeed, was the promotion of food heritage. Since 2018, thanks to an important grant we received from the Italian government, I was able to start and continue my research in Kenya, where I work exploring the food sector and the HoReCa sector, and in particular, interrogating myself concerning the possibilities indeed of provide a path or support a path of sustainable development for the rural areas, thanks to the retrieval and promotion of food heritage. Indeed, my research were assisted and collaborated with Slow Food Kedia, so I for sure have to thank John Kariuki for the presentation that opened also my presentation introducing slow food and the reason of our activism in Kenya. Now, just a few words, going back to also some of the remarks of Professor Santoni concerning my university. My university is University of Gastronomic Science. Is a small university that was opened in 2004 and was on the forefront indeed on the field of food studies, in particular on the recognition of gastronomy. So learning and knowledge about food in the Italian curricula, as it was mentioned before. We have around 600 students every year, and we have indeed a strong connection with the food internationally and many Italian food enterprises, as well as many collaboration with international universities, among which some of in Kenya. Now, this is actually the beginning of an introduction of my perspective, but I want to go deep into the topic. So let's set in the stage why we are talking today about food heritage. The introduction, the presentation of Dr. Okeyo for sure touches some of the elements such as entomology. So this is indeed a part of the heritage. We have something about the specificities of the ways that our communities were used and are used to eat. Now, why we are talking about looking back? Well, indeed, we must looking back because indeed we recognize the fact that our traditions, food tradition, have been undermined. Undermined by what? Well, on a global level, since the Second World War, the post-Second World War period, actually, we have seen a decline of the specificities concerning food and food production. This is the period of the Green Revolution. This is the period when indeed we brought forward a strenuous fight against famine with all the shortcomings we know, and in particular the country knows very well, considering also not that recent, but not so long lost past, as in the food crisis in the 1990s. Well, indeed, we recognize that we were trying to maximize quantity and profit from agriculture, introducing new cultivation strategies, new products, mechanizing production, introducing pesticides, changing the way of understanding indeed agriculture from a subsistence activity to a market activity. And in so doing, although for sure the quantity of food produced exponentially augmented in those decades, we indeed abandoned traditional practice and varieties. And we move away from the traditional way of understanding landscape and food, resulting in a depletion of biocultural diversity of our countries. This is not just something about Kenya, this is not just about Italy, it is something that happens overall internationally. However, since the 1990s in the West in particular, and more recently in Africa, we see a slow return to traditions. And this return is linked to different things. On the one hand, for sure, is an impact of the fast urbanization and a response to growing awareness about some mass-produced industrial food and the research for something healthier, safer, and at the same time also something linked with the tradition in the sense of the past, the roots, the origins that industrial food has not. On the other hand, this slow return is propelled by food tourism, that is that particular sector in food in tourism that is constructing the tourist experience based on food products. So we recognize that indeed food tourism is growing, and in particular for many destinations is becoming the key reason for exploring the country. Also for established destination for cultural tourism, such as Italy, food is becoming the real destination for at least half of the tourists, the recent stats tells us. So we have experiencing worldwide a growing demand for local production and the construction of new political and economic agenda concerning rural development based on the return to local production and traditional production. This is opening also new opportunities for the HoReCa sector, in particular for rural areas that are not established destination at the time. So, look, this is not just about Europe and the Northern America that were the first that started this, let's say, transformation. Now, since 2010, it's becoming more and more common in developing countries, and my research in Iran, for example, in Central Asia, confirmed the thing, as my research in Eastern Africa, mainly in Tanzania and Kenya. So we are living the same phenomenon worldwide, and this tell us again about urbanites asking for reliable product, foreign tourists looking for authentic experience linked also with the gastronomic experience. And indeed, there is a third element that is important for the developing country, that is the role of diaspora, that is the demand of original traditional products of people living outside the country and that look back to their original community, asking for the food of their families and food of the youth. So these are the three main motors behind the rise of a demand. And indeed, these tell us of the importance of food heritage as what? Well, as a fundamental resource for local development, rural development, and above all, sustainable development for our countries, considering also a path that embraces not just food production and commercialization, as in the case of the paper of the beautiful paper by Dr. Cardillo Golnic, but also for tourism, so consumption in place. So let's look at Kenya in particular, so that this is not completely detached from the reality. So Kenya is a really promising place for food production. First of all, it's incredible to see the performance on the food sector that is in over 1 decade have seen a growth of 9–10% a year. That is astonishing growth considering the possibilities that are still ahead. Is a country that has established tradition for the touristic sector, although the pandemic definitely hit the sector in 2020 and is still recovering in 2021-22, but is growing fast, going back possibly in 2023 to the previous pre-pandemic period. So finally, different from many other African countries, the role of diaspora is not that prominent. I'm thinking, for example, of many countries in Western Africa, such as Nigeria, Senegal, Cameroon, where indeed we have millions of citizens in Europe or in other countries around the world. In the case of Kenya, the diaspora is smaller, and we are talking about, roughly speaking, 500,000 people, mainly living in the UK, in the US, but still a possible market for Kenyan food products abroad. Now, what are the trends in the market? Looking at the domestic market, we see a growing demand since mid-2010s of organic and traditional products. Is fast growing and linked in particular with key urban centers, first of all, Nairobi. On the other side, there is a growing interest for international tourists, mainly Westerner, but also from other countries, African ones and Asian ones, of local products for different reasons. On the one hand, for looking for more safe and guaranteed production, and on the other hand also for something more typical and able to speak loudly about the richness of Kenya in terms of culture. So here some elements concerning previous research, just to say these are not just about literary review, it's also empirical research. For example, the first question was concerning what is the space in the market for traditional product. So toward reintroducing and expanding production of traditional product. Well, for example, we conduct first research in Nakuru County between 2018 and 2020, and it proved quite interesting. here is not the place to explain the reasons behind the statistical decision of using the Nakuru County as a case study, but I can tell you in a few words that is an interesting county that has a fast urbanization linked to Nakuru, but at the other end has an interesting, rich rural landscape that is used for different kind of food production. So finally, it's also a place of domestic and international migration, thanks to the presence of the flower farms around Naivasha. So it was a quite lively scenario for understanding better what was the place of the traditional product in the market. And we've seen what, well, actually in the marketplace per se, we discovered that the space is limited to mostly for to the impediment linked with the structure of the market and the logistics, lack of refrigeration, for example, that reduce the possibility of having fresh products that speaks about some specific ethnic groups rather than the majority. So generally in the market, we find more products that are more shared among different groups around the county. But beside that, we see that there is a growing space in the restaurant sector. Surprisingly enough, and different from what is happening in the West, where in general the retrieval of food heritage comes from, let's say, high-end restaurant. Instead, the retrieval and the expansion of traditional product comes from middle and low-end segment that are actually introducing more and more and more traditional products like African leaf vegetables or traditional recipe, because of answering a demand for this product from tourists and domestic and international. But while instead high-end are slowly moving toward traditional products, maybe because they're more keen of presenting something that is felt as a secure, that is international cuisine, in considering their kind of clientele. Beside the space in the marketplace is limited, there is a thriving informal or semi-formal network of commerce linked with this product. So people actually are calling home and ask for this product, and they are carrying on things boda boda. This is not avo boda in this case, but is maybe traditional boda, don't know, I'm just joking. But indeed is a way of having products and having on the table every day. So the market is there and is interesting and is open. Same results are coming from also other counties that were explored with some pilot studies in the past couple of years. So indeed, we are facing something that is promising. It is promising because of the demand, domestic demand and international demand. Indeed, as I mentioned before, the role of diaspora is limited due to the very characteristic of the country and its population. Now, so what next? So if we know that we have a market, we start having questions concerning what to do, what are indeed the product we can indeed introduce or valorize in the market. This is the reason why we start working together with Slow Food in the work of food heritage identification and dissemination. Then, for sure, also to support local communities to promote their products. So, what to do? Don Kariuki show you the book. You can download it through the QR code if you want, or there is also the link to the book. I'm going to share also the link later on the chat of Zoom for the people at home. So what we have done since 2017 actually is to continue together with a local stakeholder an empirical research concerning the entity of food heritage in Kenya. We published in 2018 the book that you have seen that published a part of the actual products we identified, 75 over 100 we have done. So each product is a story behind, is a story of a community, is a story of a particular relationship with the environment, and is something specific of the country that can be indeed be popularized. So what this research tells us beside the book itself is something important. Kenya has great opportunities in terms of food heritage and traditional food production. Why? Because indeed is a country that is quite distinct varieties of geographical spaces and ecosystems, as well as a dense cultural complexity, and that allows a proliferation of culinary tradition. That means a proliferation of different products and way of relating with the environment and use different products. So indeed, this is potentially is a fundamental element for making Kenya not just a place for let's say naturalistic tourism and safari or sea tourism, but rather to make it in a destination for food tourism, and in particular something that is quite new in sub-Saharan Africa in general, with some exception like Ethiopia, for example. Finally, all of these traditional food have strong narrative. That means strong meanings and association with tradition, with the story of family, stories of regions, that makes them even stronger in a market that actually is craving for this kind of information. So we have promising horizon. So you see just a page from the Atlas of Cake, on the Atlas of the Arc of Taste, and is linked with a particular product of a community that is the community of the Ogiek. What we have tried to do, with the Ogiek in the Mau Forest was to support a community in their process of internationalization and development of products. The Ogiek are indeed a community linked with the forest. In particular, they are a particular tradition in honey production, thanks to a specific way of dealing with the forest and different ecosystem within the forest. So this product, and I just suggest you to look at the Arc of Taste for more information concerning the brevitas of this paper, actually was a product with a history, with a very peculiar flavor and values behind. So Slow Food first supported the community in retrieving the production and start the commercialization. What we have done with the research team of university, it was to support them in the process of characterization of the product. So trying to make a match between the international taste and the local taste for honey, try to select what are the best typologies of the many kind of honeys they have for the international market. So this was a research that opened up many questions concerning the opportunities in terms of the products we have in the country, in Kenya in general, like the one of the Ogieks, but also the question concerning sustainability, and this is indeed something that remains there. So we are still working and try to find, and we can find maybe the solution together, the best channels for communicating and conveying the messages concerning traditional product in order to reach the right publics. So the urban public, for example, versus the international tourists. The other part is to work better to create stronger alliance among the different stakeholders. An initiative promoted by Slow Food United the Chef, for example, the Chef Alliance is an example of creating a strong network between producers, chefs, restaurants, canteens, and the private sector and the public sector. So this is something that should be at the basis of next steps ahead in order to promote traditional products in the country. Finally, we need indeed new policies in order to sustain local production and traditional production, particularly starting from rethinking the seed regulation, as well implementing new and better protection schemes concerning local varieties and species. These are things that involve indeed the private sector together with the public institutions. So indeed, we have to realize that there are opportunities for farmers and artisan producers. And these are not linked with massive agriculture or industrializing agriculture, but rather to more sustainable forms of production. And this is important because we need indeed sustainable rural growth. And in particular, sustainable in terms of the environment protection, but also the protection of the communities and the farmers and their culture. So indeed, this is the way to create a better alliance between the city and the country, instead of just pushing or accepting that urbanization is a strong force that is inevitable, is linked with the marginalization of the rural communities. So the message is for sure about a promising future and a promising path ahead that indeed can also lead to new competitiveness for the Kenyan production in terms of international market, and specifically thanks to tourism. So this is the message, and I'm looking forward to your comments, and I thank you all for this opportunity of sharing our experience with you. Thank you.
Settings, in a situation whereby these are food items that have been grown over a period of time and have been used to by the locals, and therefore used to environment within which they're being grown. More so the indigenous vegetables. So I was going through indigenous African leafy vegetables constituting the food heritage. I got some specific points on the food narratives concerning food traditions and environment, and I agree with you. In fact, communities even attach specific foods to specific ceremonial aspects. And even for some foods, in the Western side, for example, there is a part of an animal, chicken, called gizzard. That is a serious part of food that has to be eaten by the homeowner. I don't know why it was just men. We also have specific leafy vegetables like, how do you call the saga? The nightshade, black nightshade, which is a leafy vegetable, very nutritious. But I can assure you, it's very serious in communities. And sometimes are attached to specific ceremonies. So if you come specific in Western and we've served you some of those foods, then no, you are able to determine whether you are respected or not through the type of food, particularly those traditional foods, based on the service. And therefore, I want to agree with you, particularly in the aspect of promoting these indigenous food systems because of their sustainability. Now, moving forward, I think we have the next presenter. There will be questions, and I hope they're being collected online. The next presentation, and you can correct me if this is, you can correct me on the gender, on this one. Oh, I don't want to make a mistake on gender again. The next presenter is by Dr. Adele Rocato from UNEP. I hope it's, oh, she is.
So now we have the representation on. This is what we were showing before. So let's get into it. Let's start from the basics. The food systems right now is unsustainable. The science is clear about it. Food systems are a major driver of climate change and ecological disruption. They are the major reason for conversion of native habitats to farmland. Because also of the way that food is produced globally, it meant that in many cases, there was a creation of monocultural landscapes that really have no space for nature and that are affected by diversity a lot. And then, of course, from the agricultural production, we have a lot of pollution coming from pesticides and fertilizers. And given the whole structure of the food system, poor diets are the main reason of illness worldwide. So I'm very happy that we're here. We organize these talks about sustainable and healthy diets. And I'll talk more from a global perspective. I'm very happy that we went into the Kenyan point of view here, but I'll talk more from a global perspective today. And so I don't know if you know, but the UNEP and the UN talk a lot about the fact that we are living three main planetary crises. So the planetary crisis of climate change, of biodiversity loss, and pollution and waste. So if we look in the lens of sustainable food systems, how do the food system contribute to this crisis? So you have many stats here, but just read a couple. You know, food systems are responsible for 31% of total anthropogenic greenhouse gas emissions. From a biodiversity perspective, 1/3 of the global land area is used for agricultural land, and actually 77% of that land is used for producing just livestock or for producing feed for livestock. And then thinking about the severe droughts that we are facing here in Kenya, the agricultural irrigation accounts for 70% of water use worldwide. So this is something that we really need to address. And then from a pollution and waste perspective, the agricultural system uses at the moment a lot of pesticides and fertilizers that end up polluting our food, our waters, our land, and really have an impact on what we eat and our health. And then another part of greenhouse gas emissions come from the food loss and waste. If we think about 2022, let's get even more specific. This year specifically is a very complicated year for the food crisis. It's a year where you surely have seen, all of you, that your basket in the market, in the supermarket, costs much more. And there are many reasons for that. And the crises that are creating these vicious circles are going to come back. There are going to be new similar crises, and these kind of issues will keep on happening. So we really need to start thinking on ways and solutions to tackle them. And this crisis is caused mainly by three reasons. One is the changing climate. The climate situation is becoming worse and worse. And again, we go back to the droughts, we go back to the flooding situations where also those kind of issues create conflicts. And then we have, of course, we are being affected by the COVID-19 pandemic that disrupted a bit the value chains also globally. And if you think about a world that's really connected in the way we buy food from different places and we sell food from different places. Today, we're talking about the avocado being sold somewhere else in all over the world. And also the kind of grains that we're eating here that comes from other parts of the place of the world. This means that there is a whole, everything being connected when a value chain is broken or is not working as well, we're having issues. And this connects to the geopolitics. You know, there is the war in Ukraine, which has affected the production and the exports of wheat that mainly come from Russia and Ukraine, that, here also has been imported a lot, and that the prices were rising a lot because of that. And this is also the fuel that the war has made more expensive than the fuel is used for transportation. So, everything is very much connected. And this is, and of course, once the commodities are more expensive, usually who's been affected the most are more vulnerable people, vulnerable communities, and the developing world. So this is important to keep in mind. And now talking about diet specifically, this is just a bit of an idea of the kind of food that we eat and the kind of food that we should be eating and the kind of food that we are producing at the moment. And we should, we can see from here, like we produce a lot of cereals and starches that are actually used also for feed that's used to producing then livestock and meat. But we also consume a lot of sugar, a lot of fruit and vegetables. I'm not going to go into it because people more experts than me have talked about this, but this just to give you an idea that we should really change the way we consume food and also produce food. But still, we cannot simply produce things in a different way. We also have to change the way we eat and really work on sustainable diets. Now we go back. So because there are all these vicious cycles and everything is connected, how do we address all these issues of the food systems? So instead of just thinking about a very specific piece in the puzzle, we should really try and take a systemic approach. So a food system approach is one that thinks about the entirety of the process. So the production, transport, manufacturing, retailing, consumption, and waste of food. And thinking from a systemic approach, you also have to think about the impacts on nutrition, human health and well-being, and of course the environment, but also how there is an interdependence with other systems, so such as the biological, economic, political, and social and health systems. So it's not just a matter, again, of changing one small thing, but we really need to think globally. And this is what we do at UNEP, and I'll go more into that when we think about our assessment and try to give tools to policymakers to try and solve some of these issues. We do them through taking a food system approach. And if we think about what can be the solutions for the problems that we just talked about, if we think about the transformation pathways as they're called, so proposing solutions that go, that proposing a whole pathway to a solution, a whole pathway to bring about transformative change and better situation that we are in, we really need to think about consumption of a healthy and sustainable diets, the living income of those that work in the food industry, and they often are the most marginalized one. And as my colleague before was saying, they are the poor, even if they're supposed to be kings because they feed everyone else in the country and the world. We also need to think about nature positive food production, processing, and distribution, and also to find mechanisms that can enable food system resilience, because the climate is changing. We need to find ways to adapt and mitigate the issues that we're going to have to keep on producing food and to keep on feed the growing population that will be more than 10 billion by 2050. So now, what do we do at UNEP for that? UNEP has the headquarters here in Kenya. We don't necessarily work only with Kenya, but we work globally. And we work on the food system from different angles. And I'm not going to go into all this long list. I'm going to talk about things I'm involved in, but we have more like, on the ground, talking about biodiversity, land use, marine and freshwater, climate finance. There are many, many different things that we do at UNEP, and you can find everything you need on our website if you want to know more. But specifically, what we work on is on this first box. And we work, as I said before, on scientific integrated environmental assessments. And we have a couple that also focus on food systems. So, for example, our biggest report and assessment is called the Global Environment Outlook, which is UNEP's flagship intergovernmental and expert-led environmental assessment. It's a process that lasts couple of years. You have hundreds and hundreds of authors, reviewers, really experts from all over the world that work on creating, on putting together text, a book, let's say, but now they will be very digital, on assessing the state of the environment, but also assessing policy effectiveness and really try and understand what can be done from a policy perspective to find solutions that not only have an environmental impact, but also social and economic outcomes, and take into account the health of the planet and the people that live into it. So we're now at the 7th edition. Okay, sorry. We're now at the 7th edition of the Global Environment Outlook, and we just started it now. And really this 7th edition will look into answering 3 main questions. So how can we phase out 80% of fossil fuel by 2050? So we'll look into the energy systems and what can be done there. We look into achieving a near zero waste, fully circular economy by 2050. But also, more important for what we're talking about today, we'll look into how can we reduce the environmental impact of the food system by 2/3 by 2050. Because the previous report and also many other assessments that you might know of talk about the fact that, you know, we'll need more or less 50% more food to be produced or to be available for people to eat by 2050, but we need to have 2/3 less environmental impact. Otherwise, we're not going anywhere. So our experts will work on finding solutions and really suggesting policymakers what they can do from a policy perspective to achieve this objective. And this will be launched in 2026. So stay tuned. At some point, you'll be able to read it. And now, this is my last slide, but it's quite an interesting one, and it connects to the innovation point of the theme of the week. So we know that there are, you know, we need to move out from producing them as much livestock as we do. We need to move to diversify our diets, but there is a problem with an increased consumption of meat abroad, globally. Meaning also that many developing countries, like the more there is a growing population, the more there is a need for proteins and the more there is a consumption of meat. But then producing like livestock and dairy are the most impacting in the sectors of the agricultural system, of the food system. So what can be done about it? One option is insects for sure, and no one we all agree on that, but we need to diversify and try to understand what are all our options. So one of the things we're working on at the moment is, as part of a series that focuses on emerging environmental issues, we are trying to assess specific technologies that are supposed to substitute meat and livestock and also dairy. So we are trying to assess the potential environmental, health, nutrition, social and economic impacts of biomass and precision fermentation, novel vegan protein products, and cultivated alternatives. So what are these 3 things? Biomass and precision fermentation is really similar to how you would brew beer. So you brew some specific proteins and bacteria, and from there you can produce some products that really mimic meat. They have a similar taste to meat, a similar texture to meat, and have similar nutritive aspects. So this has already been done. You might have tried. Also, there are some new Kenyan. I've tried some Kenyan companies that are starting to do this also, but there are some other famous ones from the US that are now being sold worldwide. And then novel vegan products are the ones more used from like pea protein or soy protein. They still like this fake burgers, let's say. And then you have cultivated alternatives. Cultivated alternatives is a bit of a different, on another level of the thing, which is where you take a small cell, for example, from a cow. You could take a small cell from a year, so you're not impacting too much on the health of the animal. And from a small cell, you can produce really meat. So you're going to produce from that, you're going to cultivate the cells and end up with a steak or with a burger or with chicken. In Singapore, you can find these with chicken. You can find chicken cultivated in labs. Why are these things being sold as the solution? Because they produce many less, greenhouse gas emissions. They use much less land because they're mainly produced in a lab, and many less water. But now there can be many other issues. And this is why we're now working on that. We're not necessarily promoting them. We're trying to understand what are the issues involved with that, doing a proper assessment of it. Also, because there is not much study. Still at the beginning, and much of the study comes from the private sector. We would like to understand from a scientific perspective how they work. But it is true. And also, I think for us, it's very important. For example, many of these technologies come from the global north, but we need them to be developed here if they want to work, if we want to have, if we want to add the equity part of this conversation. We cannot just produce something that is used somewhere in the world, but how can this be really used in other parts of the world? How can be accessible for everyone? Because now one of the biggest issues is they're very expensive. So how can they become something that everyone can consume and can actually substitute some other protein products? And this report will be launched last year. So I don't know what the conclusion of our report is yet, because we are still working on it, but it's something to keep an eye on, because this could also be one of the solutions for the food systems. So I really hope I inspired some of your thoughts, and that, again, you'll think about your food more from different perspectives, and that can also help the environment. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Sustainable food systems, it is, with the incoming of technology. And in our last remarks is that in Singapore, they're now using a stem cell, and regenerating it in the laboratory to be able to produce more meat that is having less impact onto the environment. And of course, just to reiterate, there are still issues. Us as nutritionists, we are still worried. What will be the implication of the same on the cells of the body? So we still have to do our clinical trials, not just abroad, but even locally, and see how the Kenyan cells will receive it. Sustainable food production system and technologies and food consumption. We are eagerly waiting for that report. You said it is next year? This report will be launched next year?
Yes.
Okay. We are watching. We will be watching that report very closely.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh no, we understood. And I was just emphasizing, just to make everybody, that it is not last year, but next year. And then, of course, other technologies, Dr. Keo, it's the same Singapore now are exploring space for purposes of growing certain food crops as well. In Kenya, we still have vast, and the sub-Saharan Africa, we still have vast lands that I think can also be consumed. Somebody would ask, why would somebody want to go to space? And yet you can still sublet other countries that with the vast spaces for production. But of course, geopoliticals are some of the issues that she has mentioned are affecting the food systems as well. So dealing with all these issues are multifaceted, and from the policy perspective, it boils down to scientists to be able to provide and dig deep into solutions. And that is the conclusion. Otherwise, after that very important presentation from Dr. Adele, the next presentation is more of a panel discussion. And this panel discussion will be about a presentation that was already done by Dr. Keo and Laura Gake on insect foods. We want to now form a panel discussion that is going to have Dr. Konyole, myself, and Laura, and it will be, and Professor Abong of the University of Nairobi. So Dr. Keo will take over from here to moderate. Okay. Thank you. So Laura will come here.
So thank you very much, all the presenters, and It's very interesting. Professor Nguka is talking about exploring space, but there are those who don't even want to talk to people. They like talking to robots. So it's human nature and diversity. When you say, now I will keep 2 robots in my house for conversation and no human being. That's also technology. But for food, of course, going to space, exploring production in areas that don't receive rain is very critical in science. So we are going to the next level of discussions, and I want to do a synopsis. So the technical team, can you focus so that we can have the panelists first? Before that, the panelists will be sitting here. So just wait. We get you the seats. Yeah. Oh, yes. So Professor Nguka, can I have Professor Nguka here in front, Laura, and just put them. So the synopsis is that there are emerging trends of sustainable food in the global food security and food systems. We have been talking about food systems, value chain. And of course, in the context of nutrition, malnutrition has become a real issue along the life cycle, which is more severe on hidden hunger. And insects of varied species have been known as a host of micronutrients. For example, vitamins, calcium, zinc, iron. And these categories of organisms are easy to access or multiply as alternative source of protein and micronutrient supply. And the consumption of insects like termites, crickets, and grasshoppers are common in some parts of Kenya, Uganda, of course, Thailand, India, South Africa. And this chapter of discussion, therefore, explores the insects as alternative diet, focusing on sustainable food security in the context of access within the global food systems value chain. We've just had a talk on alternative ways of mimicking a meat as a source of protein. And we are also here with the alternative source, which is insects. Therefore, confronting the world with this aspect would be critical. Now, the entomophagy could be a solution to increasing urgent food security problems in the country. And the current matter, therefore, remains silent on the traditional or indigenous knowledge on food. And so we see edible insects as a potential to become a primary source of micronutrients in the future. And so with this, our colleagues here would want to use their own way of thinking to take us through this discussion. And we have, therefore, Professor Nguka here. If we were to commercialize insect, what are the key issues and what about the acceptability in it? So we will have Professor go first, and then we will invite Ms. Gake, who is here physically, and then we will move to Dr. Konyole and then Dr. Bong. So Professor Nguka, in 5 minutes maximum, what would you say about the insect? The microphone is there.
Thank you very much. I hope everybody is hearing me, including those online. Now, readings and presentations that I've made today have explicitly provided insects as actually providing solutions to alternative source of food. In Africa and in the countries that have been mentioned, Kenya, Uganda, and other sub-Saharan African countries, including South Africa, have consumed insects, not from just the recent past, but insect consumption has been there with us since immemorial, and many of us before we were born. As has already been mentioned, the Western Kenya particularly, there are 4 major insects that are coming out very strongly that has been consumed over a long period of time, which include the flying termites, the lake flies. We also have, of course, the crickets, which has now been almost commercialized because from the study that is going on in JUST, it is now being used to even produce food products that are generally more acceptable. Then other than crickets, there are others that have been mentioned, which include the queen termites, which some of us grew up actually hunting literally from their various points and roasting to be able to provide food. Now, one key thing that is coming out is that insects are quite efficient in converting the biodiversity into even essential nutrients. And among them that were mentioned as some consisting or constituting the composition of insects are essential fatty acids. From the presentations, we realized that oleic, linolenic, and palmitic acids, very essential fatty acids, are actually very efficient or found in those foods, other than the essential amino acids. And therefore, the other component that we see as an opportunity is that consumption of insects is actually increasing the elasticity of what we call the food groups. It is providing solution into the food systems, and therefore providing us with dietary diversity that we actually need as a people to be able to achieve our nutritional needs or meet our nutritional requirements. Lastly, on economic perspective, insects are very easy to grow, and has already been indicated very clearly that they require not only small spaces, but are also less contributors to the climate change in terms of the chlorofluorocarbons that are actually contributing to ozone layer. Insects, therefore, are key when it comes to changing our dietary patterns, but more importantly, helping us in increasing our dietary diversity and dietary variety within the respective food groups. Thank you.
I agree with what Prof has said. The current global food systems are changing. The current global food systems are clearly changing. And if we don't do something about it, then we might end up having a large population of people not meeting their daily intake. And just like the previous presenters presented, the major nutrient that is being affected is protein source. The current, because of the current climate change, animal farming might not be the most effective way of meeting protein intake. And insects provide a cheap and an alternative source for the global population to meet its protein intake. However, the major challenge to this will be consumer acceptability. If I can ask you, how many of you are willing to eat insects? How many of you are willing to include insects into their diets? Maybe somebody will say, I can do 2, I can do 1, I cannot even stand 1. So we really need to do something on consumer acceptability, educate the population on the importance of insects insect consumption, educate the population on how to produce these insects, educate the population on how to incorporate these insects into their routine diets, and also address issues about food safety, because we tend to associate insects with that. But if we address issues with food safety on products that are developed from insects are addressed, then insect uptake will definitely be positively accepted by the society. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Professor Nguka. Dr. Konyole, you have been in the business of insects and particularly associated with the GOTRH cookies. Sometimes, if I remember, from where you sit, what is the future of insects when it comes to commercialization and of course adoption at household level?
Thank you, CEO Dr. Keo, and thank you, fellow panelists. Thank you, organizers, for this. Can you hear me? So thank you for the organization of this, and thank you for the invitation. Briefly, I'm Silvanus Konyole. Silvanus Konyole is a food and nutrition scientist, currently based at Masinde Muliro University of Science and Technology, the Department of Nutrition Sciences, and where I teach and do research. My main area of research is what we call widely as maternal, infant, and young child nutrition. And with that, I'm specifically keen on complementary feeding, which touches on issues of new product development and so on. So for the last 15 years, I've been very keen with other co-workers on matters product development, incorporating the locally available foods, and one of them has been the insects. So we have actually have the movement on insects for food and feed. To try specifically to answer what the CEO gave on the synopsis. Well, when we started 15 years ago, it was very difficult to imagine that we'll reach where we are now. Finally, we are getting here, and just to address some of the concerns that have come up very strongly. For example, on the issue of acceptability, I remember the first time we visited the field and the communities for their view on this. I had a focus group discussion with some men who are the head of households, and we were asking, how will you take it if we incorporated the edible flying termites into a complementary food for your infants and young children? They said, well, for the young children, they eat them freely outside there when they're flying. So we will be delighted to hear you can incorporate into a product that they can even eat, which is more healthier. So then we picked it up from there, and we've been doing a lot of studies on acceptability. Happy to report that acceptability of the same is increasing, though it is quite contextual. Contextual to mean, depending on which insect is already being eaten where freely, then you'll find this uptake going high based on that context. The second bit is also the form in which they eat them. We've been trying to go for porridge, for example, as a preferred vehicle to package the insects into the complementary food. We recently got a culture shock in some part of Ghana where porridge is not a popular food for complementing. So they preferred instead to incorporate it in a sauce that they also told us the infants and young children are fed on at the household level. But back to just a quick summary of which insect where quickly. I would say from where we sit, what we are watching as an emerging trend is, given the various differences in the composition of the various insects, the product development also tends to be contextual, because as we have highlighted here, some are rich in the essential fat, some are higher in the proteins and so on. So you cannot come with a one straitjacket to say, if you are to do the complementary food for commercializing, this is the template. Now, with the various compositions, then you have to optimize it based on the recommended dietary intakes and so on and so forth. Now, that variation in composition also, and of course, having highlighted the protein bit and the micronutrients bit is sounding very nice. But a challenge comes with the fatty bit, when you have to process it, for example, through an extrusion process and so on, part of the challenge comes when you are actually like doing an equivalent of a cold press, removing that oil, which is supposed to be part of the food. And therefore, it changes the dynamics of the composition and the provisions and so on. But over and above that, you also have to deal with the oils on matters rancidity and therefore product storage. Because remember, some of these things, you are trying to make them as available as possible. So the shelf life becomes an issue. Remember, if you have to extend the shelf life of simple maize or corn, as called in some other parts of the world, you have to defat. You have to remove the fatty bit of it. Yeah. What about the insects, some of which are higher in oils than, or the fat than some of the example that I've just given there. Now, the other bit that I also want to highlight is on the issue of safety, which I think some of the colleagues have highlighted very well. I want to give it the three-pronged approach. The first has got to do with the allergy. Some of the products in the insects could cause allergic reactions. For example, if you eat too much, known with the termite, for example, you just eat and it will pass whole as it is and digested in tract. But you can also have allergic reactions in various forms, either from the proteins or other components of it, which a lot of work going on in this area. We have the issues of agrochemical cross-contamination. Yeah, so remember, quite a number of these insects are also pests in other aspects. So the farmers are struggling to control them from their crops. And as they do that, this could cause contamination in the insect, which will get into the value chain. And as one of the presenter was giving the traceability thing, it should also be very applicable here. And then, of course, the microbial aspect. One of the experiences we had when we started this work, as a requirement by the Kenya Bureau of Standards, we had to produce a product that is safe for human consumption. So when we took it through the rigorous microbial analysis process, we discovered Salmonella, E. coli, and some of the other microorganisms in our product. And when we traced it back, it had got to do with where we harvest it and how we harvest it. Freehands, children picking, around anthills where some people used to dispose their waste and stuff. So that production bit has to be really controlled so that you're producing a product that is safe for human consumption. I want to also touch on a little bit of challenges beyond that. One of the biggest challenges with matters acceptability when you do the product development has got to do with the texture of the product. And this has been traced to the silicates in some of the parts. For example, the head. I've had colleagues talk about Ruspolia, the grasshopper in Uganda. If you incorporate it in a product, you have this gritty texture of the product, which is affecting the acceptability. And we are trying to explore options around that to make it more acceptable. We have the issue of the smell for some of the guys. For the communities that already use and accept, they will tell you, you need to add more, in fact, because we can't detect what you are saying is here. But for the guys who don't traditionally use, they say, I think I can get the smell from afar, and that kind of affects the acceptability. Now, the good news is that if you talk about the chitinous exoskeleton of the insects, there's also the medicinal value of that bit in repairing the gut integrity of the infants and young children being fed on this product. And one of the current researches we are doing is trying to incorporate insect products. I saw one of my PhD students online, Nikki Okeyo. We are trying to look at the possibility of incorporating this in complementary foods and taking advantage of the chitinous exoskeleton to repair the gut integrity of these infants and young children. Research is increasingly showing, as we know in the area of complementary feeding, no single bullet sorts it out. So one of the challenges or the gaps we have seen is that it has got to do with the leakiness of the gut, especially of infants and young children in resource-limited setting. So you may have this magic bullet food, but what if the gut is leaky and therefore the absorption becomes a malabsorption issue? So then we are saying, if that is increasingly showing signs, then can we have a proof that the chitinous exoskeleton will also add on to the possibility of the medicinal value of insects being part of the diet? Otherwise, I think the localization of this is global. I'm happy I'm giving this small conversation in an Italian function. The Italians here may be familiar with the casumanzu, which is a type of a cheese made from the sheep milk. And part of it are actually the insect larvae, which are naturally left to grow there. There's no pasteurization of that milk, no nothing. And if you go to the Sardinia part of Italy, it's a delicacy there. I know some of the colleagues here who are attending this symposium will be able to agree with me on that. On the last bit, you can also use this as part of enticing your taste. For example, we know of the formic acid and the sweet sour taste that it can give to the foods. The ants, there are specific types of red ants that actually produce this formic acid. And I know I've visited a few farms where they are trying to harness this and harvest the formic acid for use as part of the food ingredients to enhance the taste. Colleagues, I want to encourage you. If you go to Copenhagen city now, there's a facility there called Noma. The chefs there, part of them are Italians, I think. There's one, Roberto, who is very good with this. He has come to Kenya severally. The demand for insect-enriched foods is growing by day. And I want to encourage us to take the challenge. Let's not look back. I want to finish this by talking about the policy framework, because this also has to support it. Not so long ago, I think about a year less, the KEBS, so at the peak of COVID lockdowns and challenges, KEBS invited us for a meeting where we actually developed guidelines. The KEBS is the Kenya Bureau of Standards for product development in the line of incorporating insects as part of food. So what you need to do with labeling, what you need to do with quality issues in all aspects are already in that document. For those who are interested, please try to get a copy of this document. I want to end up by also mentioning the aspect of the feed. In Kenya and globally, something called the black soldier fly has picked up very strongly for incorporation as part of animal feeds. It helps produce that carbon blueprint that we are talking about. And it is rich, the larval stage of this insect is very rich in proteins, which can be incorporated into feeds, or the larva can be directly fed into some animals, for example, chicken, some poultry generally, and also the swines, yeah? So something to also think about as we go forward. Allow me to end it there, Chair. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so, Dr. K, I think my colleagues who have come before me have quite given an elaborate information on insects. And I think I will endeavor not to repeat what they have indicated, but try to elaborate on a few issues. I think this symposium is talking about sustainability. And when you talk about sustainability, there are key components of sustainability. One, you look at the resource use. Hello? Hello? Okay, you are muted.
No, we can hear you, Professor Bong.
Oh, I can see Okeo is talking, but I can't hear him.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so the first thing we need to look at is when you talk about sustainability is the resource use. And under resource use, you look at, can you be able to use especially your renewable resources in a way that they are sustainable? And especially when you talk of in food production, you are looking at how much do you want to put in, and whatever you put in, are you producing a lot of carbon footprints? And clearly we see that insects as an alternative source of protein, and not only protein, but also alternative source of omega-3 fats, which are good, and of course minerals, which require less resources in a very small section. Then insects are one of the alternative ways for us to think forward. And why we need to think on sustainability, colleagues, is because as it stands now, our population growth is about 2.3 to around 3 out of every death. And that means we are contributing to the population growth. And we know that by 2050, it is projected that we will be feeding up to about 10 billion. And Kenyan scenario is even more compounded, colleagues, because urbanization is seriously catching up with us, whereas we are standing at about 55 to 58%. But surely with our divisional kind of governance, where we have got counties, and counties are now creating more urban centers, there is no doubt that that urbanization will increase people living in urban centers up to about 70%. We need to think about how we deal with it, because we will not have enough space in those urban centers or even in the rural areas where the land subdivision has become an issue. So in that context, then insects with a small space production become a better alternative. Now, I've heard colleagues talk about acceptability, but let me tell you, as others have said, that necessity is the mother of inventions. And it is also the necessity that is actually going to encourage us to continue to consume even what we have not originally or traditionally consumed. However, I'm glad to note that in the Kenyan context, we have traditionally consumed insects in various pockets of the country. And as the world is racing towards feeding the 10 billion, we cannot be left behind. And of course, when you don't have enough to eat, you really do not have adequate choice to make on what to eat or not. Let me tell you, I've just come from Singapore in the last 2 weeks. And when I went to eat, the only thing that I found in that setup that I found on the plate was a plate of crab soup and something. And of course, you find a crab on it. These are things that I've never eaten, but because it is what is available at that point and that I could access easily and quickly, I had to have a bite of what I traditionally don't eat. And so if the push comes to shove, I'm very sure that with innovations and in various forms of consumption, we are able to actually downstream the insect consumption in our population. And that goes, it goes without saying that as scientists in nutrition and food technology, we have a role to play when it comes to behavior change. And then we have to invest heavily on behavior change communication in order to change our mindset and our thinking. Because whatever we can put forward, we should be able to drum up into the ears of our people. Once they know that it is not a bad thing, I'm sure that the Kenyan population and the African in general will be able to partake innovative products from insects. That is the bit I wanted to add, Dr. Keyo. Thank you.
Something about the fat and the fear on the separation and what type of fat from the insects.
Can you come up again? I just had the fat and fear. Can you come up with the initial section of that question?
The issue of the type of fat and of course the technology on extraction and what kind of the final fat you come with and how that feed into the cost.
Well, since some will call this novel type of food, though from where we stand, it may not be novel. But insects have got quite some good and saturated fats. The only issue that we haven't developed to the full capacity is the extraction process. And especially when you talk of either cold press or hot press. However, with the development of this technology, the fat in itself that we get from insects are very good. At this point, I may not comment on it beyond that. Thank you.
In 1 second, what do you want to say about commercialization, Professor Ngo?
In 1 second, that's serious. 1 second is gone. I think from what has been presented is that insects provides opportunity for not only product development for local consumption, but even for international consumption. Dr. Konyole has raised some hotels. He has talked about hotels that are now externally giving opportunity for insects as food. We have also talked about the issue of insects actually having a lot of fats, and among them are these essential fatty acids, which if can be explored, then that can also provide a big opportunity for market. But more importantly, providing a solution as a cheap source of protein, which then is going to help us. So the prospects for insects is here and very high.
In 1 second, edible insects provide a sustainable alternative, and it's a new concept that should be commercialized. Thank you.
Dr. Konyole, are you still online?
I'm here, Dr. Keo. Can you hear me?
Final word?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, I would say let's give insects a chance. It's one of the ways to act locally and think globally on matters food. Thank you.
Viewers and our panelists, it is a short time for that topic. I think we'll create another day for a scientific oriented discussion on it. For now, it's just reintroducing insects, because the eating of insects came way before we were all born. So it's just a matter of going back to the indigenous knowledge which we are escaping from. And so the aspect of slow food, which is the opposite of fast food, needs to really come out very well. And anti-fast food is slow food. True or false? We are not anti-fast food, it's slow food. So, but slow food seems to be a friend to indigenous knowledge. So we can start from there, and this is a very good discussion. Thank you very much, colleagues who have joined the panel, and the technical team, thank you for struggling very well with this. Now it is just time to lunch and to closure, and before that, maybe 1 or 2 questions. Professor will take over as I organize if the chair is online.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. This has been a very fruitful deliberation that has brought insects back to the table after a long time of disappearance. It is coming out very clearly that insects are going to provide us with a solution in Africa and in the entire world. And if I have to reiterate what Professor Michele Pontefrancesco said, going back or moving forward is the word. I can pick that and incorporate is this rejoining or bringing back insects as a food source. I'm supposed to do, yes. Okay. Thank you. So as we wait for the chair of the Kenya Nutrition and Dietetics Institute, I want to give opportunity for 1 or 2 reactions from the Italiano side and from Kenyan side. Okay. Okay.
First of all, thank you very much again for hosting us. And I only have a curiosity about this insect, which is very stimulating to me. as I said, it's far from our culture, but I want to learn. Maybe there are also business opportunities there. I don't know. He's already. So together with the mango, you bring the insects. Okay. Now, I would like to know how far we are in the experiments in growing insects, because if we want to have it on a large scale, it must become something industrial. And we have learned that when you have intensive growing of a species, for example, a chicken, or then all these animals together, they start to grow illness, or you need antibiotics for keeping the illness down. And there are many issues when you bring these animals from nature to an intensive growing. And so I was wondering how in the process we are to doing this with insects. Thank you.
That is an important question. Dr. Konyole has been on this for quite long, for 15 years. So I would want to leave that question to Dr. Konyole, especially the crickets. What I can tell you as Dr. Konyole is coming in is that the cricket is already being grown and is being processed in Kenya. We now have it in the form of candies. We have biscuits for it, which is already mini commercialized. It's being sold and it has been supported. But I want to leave Dr. Konyole to say more about it. Please.
Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me, Chair?
We can hear you.
Okay, thanks. I think as you have alluded to it, we have been very successful with the cricket farming. And that has gone well. I would want to stress that the key thing is good agricultural practices, including maintenance of hygiene, and of course, the matters of the weather conditions around and stuff, including the feeds that you feed them, because we have also done experiments to be able to tell which ones give better yields compared to others. The same story, we have also experienced it with the black soldier fly, as I was mentioning, though not for food, but for feed. Again, we've not seen the challenges of the issues of cross-contamination and therefore the death of batches and stuff, but issues of hygiene around it, because, you know, like the black soldier fly are majorly valorizers. In valorization, you are trying to really answer to the questions of sustainability that one of the panelists, Professor Bong, was trying to stress. So you actually use waste vegetative material to try, and even animal material, to try and valorize them through the BSF as you produce high proteinous feed. So again, we've not had problems with that. I think most of the problems we've had with the production of the two has got to do with maintenance of the environment. So issues of temperature, issues of lighting. For example, crickets, you know, are light shy, and so on and so forth. So we've not moved to the level of the agrochemicals yet for the same, but I see it coming, as you try to say, because there's also the physiological and even the genetical improvements as you try to maintain the herd and stuff like that. So when we get there, probably we'll go the good agricultural practice way to include that aspect. I don't remember what the second question was. It was something on what? Production?
You have done well. That's what
okay.
was being asked.
Thanks.
And you've provided the answer. Second question from
exactly a question, more of an emphasis and a comment. I was honored to be part of a symposium in Isipe, still talking about the resilience of bioeconomy. And for me, what I'd just like to emphasize is if we can focus on the food system, and the food system being the whole process from production to transportation, because I think it touches me most as a nutritionist or part of the nutrition community, still the main factor being food insecurity. So I think there's a video going around on the internet of there's a man who's saying that in Kinangop, I think, for them, they don't have food insecurity. For them, they have wastage of food. So cabbage is being given to cows. So I was just like, okay, if his issue is just transportation, can we as KNDI, we are now a big body, can we now take this opportunity and be like, okay, we can now effect change and cause collaboration with the government and say, now let's go and remove this issue of food insecurity, focus on correcting the roads and infrastructure so that now we can be able to eradicate such issues and be able to improve the bioeconomy. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So the issue of an imbalanced world, in some places there is plenty or too much, in others none. How do we bridge in the gap to ensure that those that have plenty can be redistributed? And Dr. here was talking about farm to fork or from field to fork in terms of quality assurance, including those aspects of even marking them. So I think that is what you're talking about, ensuring that there is redistribution from areas of plenty to areas of scarcity so that there is an overall good distribution to be able to sort out the issues of food insecurity. And that's a government policy issue. Now, I think as we move on, I would like to bring in Dr. Okeyo to now recognize the universities that were in this forum. Then I think we'll move to the next level for the closing remarks.
Thank you very much, Professor and the team. I think we cannot end this discussion. And this is just the beginning of our discussions on matters of sustainability, healthy diet. And I know the fear of going back to where we came from is normally a lot of phobia, even for some of us. If you are told to do without mobile phones now, I'm sure we will all be in darkness. But mobile phones has also come with weird things and challenges. But can we do without it? No. So it means we have to strive on and see how sustainable we can. Now, for our Italian colleague, I think what is coming out very well, we've seen the mango and avocado value chain, which is really a high-level technology that's coming up. And I think I was beginning to see many trees of avocado if it is properly campaigned for. And this also is a value chain that we must recognize. As we do that, as somebody was saying, you think about avocado and insects. I don't know how that will be, but we will look at details on how all this can come in. So anybody interested in technology of insects, I think that line is good. Those who are also interested in technology of avocado and of course exports, that is also very, very important. Now let me take this chance to, before we invite the chair of KNDI to close, because now lunch is coming, I want to recognize that with us, we have about nine universities that have joined for today's workshop symposium. So we have Maseno University is represented by Dr. Nyango there. Dedan Kimathi University by Dr. Dorothy. Pwani University, we have Emma Mwapauda, although we also have our chair from Pwani University there. We have Mount Kenya University represented by Leah. We have Nairobi University, Dr. Sophie Ngala. And then we have Karatina University, Dr. Louise Ngugi. And then we have Neo Nutrition Solutions, who is a member of the council also for KNDI, but now coming in as a private practitioner. Meru University is represented by Dr. Chege. Some colleges, again, we have PCA Tumutumu in Nyeri. And then we also have Outspan Medical College. And then finally, Kenya Institute of, what is this? Social work. Okay, thank you. Most Masinde Muliro University is represented by Dr. Kunyole, though Dr. Kunyole is come as an expert. Our chair is online. I think it's better if we give a chance to close this meeting. Dr. Agriculture, where you are, you can unmute. And after the chair, I think we'll have Dr. Elena to just give us the closing from Italiano side. Please.
Thank you. Thank you, CEO, for this. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As you have been told, I'm the chair of KNDI Council. My name is Dr. Evelyn Krigacha. And on behalf of the council, I want to take this opportunity to thank all of you and express my appreciation to the speakers and finalists for their valuable contribution to our symposium on today's occasion for convenience and innovation, the ingredients for a sustainable and healthy diet. My deepest gratitude goes to His Excellency, the Ambassador of Italy, that is Roberto Natari, and also to all those who have attended this symposium. I say thank you very much for your attendance and your contribution. Kenya Nutritionist and Dietitian Institute is a Nutritionist and Dietitian Act number 18 of 2007 is established under Cap 253B as a professional regulatory agency on matters related to nutrition and dietetics in Kenya. Under Section 6E of the Act, the Institute is to research into and provide public education on nutrition and dietetics issues in Kenya and beyond. And I'm glad that we have dealt with it singularly and remarkably today. We as KNDI, we will continue to accommodate and enlarge in all collaboration, targeting research aimed at food security, because food is life. Following the current economic anomalies and climate changes experienced globally, food insecurity has been the topmost and noodles worldwide. This has a greater extent murdered most African nations, leaving them at the mercy of well-wishers for food donations. This calls for a profound use of research to enlighten the population on auxiliary food sources which are locally available and at low cost of production. Like, for example, the one that has just been presented today. This symposium has really exhausted on this, and we look forward to a big impact on the same. I would say a food insecure community, we always exhibit poor nutrition status unless we ensure that the former is brought to a standstill. And we can only bring this to a standstill when we have foods that people are able to accept and use for their own consumption. As envisaged from today's discussions, we are just a step away from ensuring our population gets the adequate information on food diversity for the locally available options in a convenient manner. At a glance, the Italian cuisine has over the years provided diverse ingredients.
Yeah, there are network problems, so I think maybe she's coming back.
Hello.
Since I am one of the person who is in between the symposium and the lunch, I will be very fast. So first, I just want to acknowledge that this symposium was definitely interesting. From the speeches that we had the chance to listen, we really had the chance to understand how long is the way
of a product from farm to fork. It's a very long way, definitely, with a lot of related issues that they are involved. So we talk about certification, we talked about the sustainability, we talked about new type of food that we can try to incorporate in our diet. Sometimes they are new type of food, sometimes they are old. I think that just talking with our colleagues here, we just understand that
I think even
already
Dr. Konyole
eaten
could hear me from
long
there, but you
time.
people are the only
Many of
ones
us are
who are
just
not
not used to it
hearing me.
anymore, but it's definitely something that we
Yeah,
can
but it's
incorporate
okay.
again in our diet.
I had not finished.
Now,
I had not finished, but
definitely
we
from
start or do we just
today,
get where it is?
I will think more about this long path that our food is doing to arrive to our table. And I think that all of us, we got interesting insight about it. So let me just conclude with some, just thanking some people that helping us to organize today this event. So first, I want to thank Kenya Nutritionist and Dietitian Institute for hosting us and also for trusting us. So basically, we didn't know each other before this event. We met because of this event, and we just, both of us trust each other. And the result is a beautiful event and a lot of opportunity for connection and networking, which is definitely an highlight of an event like this. Thank you so much, Dr. David Okeyo, for hosting us. You were an amazing host. Thank you. Then let me thank all the people who helped behind the scenes in the organization from both institutions, the Italian Cultural Institute and the Kenyan Nutritionist and Dietitian Institute as well. Let me thank the embassy, especially Professor Fabio Santoni, so our scientific attaché. And, you know, since you are here, I think that our symposium are much more interesting since you are helping us with your expertise. Thank you to all the speakers. I'm not going to give the list of the names again because we had the chance to meet them, but let me thank you especially the one that they connected online. So for us who came here, was definitely easier to just entering inside the mood of this symposium. For the people who connected online was more difficult, so thank you for taking the challenge. And then thank you to the media and to the technical staff. And thank you to the audience here in presence and the one online, especially the one in YouTube who was very quite big, I have to say. So thank you so much for organizing it. So thank you very much, everybody. And let's just finish this and enjoy the networking part after. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Since we started with a word of prayer, we want to end it with the same. Thank you very much. Dr. Keo, you started it, so you close it.
I like prayer, isn't it? Thank you very much, Professor Goka. I'm going to pray to close the meeting and also pray for food. Gastronomy is not complete until the food is settled in the stomach. In the order of gastronomy, there's order of eating. And the first thing is to eat that word. Let's stand and pray and honor God. Okay? Okay, let's pray. Father, in the name of Jesus, we want to thank you, Lord, and we want to thank you because we started with you and we said we shall be careful to return all the glory for the success. We thank you for the spirit of intellect and for the excellence of this workshop. We thank you for all the speakers. We thank you for His Excellency, the Ambassador for Italy, and we thank you even for those from the embassy. We thank you for the Institute of Italiano, the Cultural Institute. We thank you for the Kenya Fraternity. Lord, we want to say that as we leave this place, you go with us. As we eat what is provided for us, let it settle. Let it stay without causing any harm. Again, as we said, we can never be tired to give you thanks. If we eat well, no commotion in the stomach, we shall be careful again to return all the glory. We pray all this, believing in the In the name of God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. Amen. We can enjoy our food. I think it's ready, and you can network also.